Hey guys, it's me, Omegon, doing once again another Codex retrospective, and with me is Alpha Legionnaire 1616.
Good evening, everyone.
I actually got the number designation right this time, guys. Or did
No, you
I?
didn't. We've just stopped caring.
This time, continuing on with third edition because second edition codexes are kind of odd, and third edition was when real codexes started really being a thing. Like there were codexes prior, but third editions,
They weren't what you would recognize as a codex in the modern day.
yeah, even if they called themselves codexes, and also like in third edition, like the codexes were also really new in this regard because, like with the Tau Codex, like the Tau Codex was like the latest third edition codex. Like it came out right before about fourth edition came out, if I got the timeline right. This one is not as new, obviously. It's still got the same formatting as you can see here, and as with the rest of like most of third edition, most people didn't actually need codexes because codexes were kind of almost written like splat books because the basic rules for all the races in third edition were available in index inside the core rule book. So you didn't like, and so if you got a codex in third edition, it was more like, oh yeah, you can play whatever army you want with the core rule book, but you need if you want to play an army with all the actual cool stuff it's supposed to do, you have to go buy the codex. And this is obviously Codex Necrons. And as always, we should start with the cover art. Everybody has seen this cover art. This cover art is
If you
great.
haven't seen it, I don't know where the fuck you've been for the last,
They
decade and
could
a
be
half.
new. They could be new to 40k, and if they're new to
I
40k and
mean,
they're finding this channel, that's a good thing.
if they're new enough to 40k that they haven't seen this, what are you doing? Just go read a book first and come back later.
As long as it's not a Horus Heresy book, don't tell them to read
Oh
books.
no.
Don't tell them to read Black Library
No,
stuff, dude.
you're absolutely right. Don't go and read books. Reading books is bad. Don't do it. Especially more recent books from Black Library.
He's saying it sarcastically, but he's actually being genuine.
Or am
Uh,
I?
he's Alpha Legionnaire. There's nothing but plausible deniability. There's layers of plausible deniability. But about this piece, this is Karl Kopinski, which what's interesting. There's a lot of interesting things about this piece actually. Firstly, other than just it being iconic and really fucking cool looking and all like the
It
different
is
color grading
really fucking cool looking.
and
This is
and
just.
how
This is
good
an
the light.
absolute. This
Like
is an
look at all this
absolutely
lighting.
wonderful piece.
Like how cool all of these lighting effects are that you did, because this is before like digital media was really easy to do. So he probably sketched this out and then like painted it. Like this was probably like hand painted and hand colored and then like touched up in like an editing program after the fact. But this came out like 2002, 2001.
It's going to be a bit difficult for our viewers at home, but there is some very fine detailing
The copyright
that
on this,
doesn't translate well to digital
yeah,
media.
the copyright on this, especially not when it was made. The copyright on this is 2002. This is a 2001 2002 piece that he did. I mean, it might have been he might have done this piece earlier for some of the artwork, but like color artwork was not that common in 40k
It
outside of
was not.
covers until about
Yeah.
fourth edition. Um,
Well, you say cover artwork. There
color,
were color photographs, for
yeah,
instance, of models and so on.
yeah, and
Just not art itself.
yeah,
Not painted or drawn. Just photographs were very frequently colored.
yeah, and like this piece is so cool because of like all the fog effects, all the perspective, like he's got all these layering. Just this is a massive piece, and I want to know if there's like this is a kind of piece like I wish that like GWHQ had like frescoes of some of the artwork there. Like you like
That would be fantastic.
if like there was just
So
like
imagine this just on the wall as you come in.
yeah, and it's like
Hmm.
that if they had a fresco, it'd be like some Space Marine shit, and it would be some recent
Oh
Space Marine
God,
shit too.
loyalists.
It wouldn't be like the iconic like Crimson Fists like
No,
final
no,
holdout piece.
they would do that thing that happened with what was it, the Cartoon Network drawing of Spike on the wall from Cowboy Bebop, where they just draw over the existing fresco of
Yeah.
the old chapters and just replace them with Primaris Marines. And then
Yeah.
there's like one or two like old Marines just in the background
I
looking
mean, we
sad.
know that they're totally feckless because like they got rid of their own Space Marine statue to replace it with a what are they fucking called from Age of Sigmar?
Does anyone care really?
Stormcast Eternals.
Shut up.
So
That's not even real. You're just saying words now.
yeah, but another
That is some Space Wolf tier naming convention.
so two things about this piece. Well, look, he's got his little signature on the bottom there that they kept in because they actually like their artists during this era, as opposed to like 6th edition, 7th edition onward. They started basically just copy pasting everything and paying the art team as little as possible. Um, lighting effects on the rib cages and like the various different rating, and something you were mentioning before was like the little like the rune, like the coloring for like the metallic runes on the shoulder
Oh
pauldrons
yeah,
and
because if
everything.
you look, there's gold inlaying on their pauldrons and on their foreheads and everything else, and there's a lot of very small details
And a really cool
that
thing about this,
Necrons later on just kind of abandoned.
well, yeah, because they went through a whole redesign, which was in equal parts a good and bad thing, to be honest. But we should talk
The
about
the
that more.
redesign for their lore it was good. I would say they dropped a lot of the aesthetic choices that I found to be very
Or at
very
least
good.
warp them so much that they were like much
Yeah,
they were
but in this case, in the case of like I said, the gilding, for instance, just completely dropped, just totally abandoned all the fine details, and they
yeah,
just kind of made the Necrons look more. I don't want to say flaccid, but at least barren of interesting features.
or at least they're much less subtle, I would say, more like, because
Yeah,
I do like, I mean,
they're very blunt
yeah,
objects
we
now.
should probably we should talk more about this when we get to the actual 5th edition codex where that changes, because they didn't have a 4th edition codex. This was the 4th edition codex basically. This came out before, like right before the end of 3rd edition, similar to the Tau book we did last time. But a thing that I wanted to mention about this, that like they actually, you only would know if you read the actual like lore snippets in this book, and just read like the lore snippets that have nothing to do with any of the crunch in the book. Apparently, like the Necrons iconically in like every video game representation they've gotten since this, for the Dawn of War games and further on, and like most mass media, they're like the necrodermis is black. They're metallic black and dark and imposing. They're supposed to be silver and like just aged with time to the point where they look this is not supposed to be like pitch black so much as like really darkened aged silver covered in soot.
They are very tarnished metal, but they
Yeah,
are they are more equivalent to the T1000
yeah, like they have
in terms
these
of coloration.
yeah,
They're made of nanomachines.
which is weird, yeah, because like they're made of nanomachines and living metal that's supposed to reform from anything, but like this design era, they're like T1000 because they're ripoffs of the Terminators, obviously. Like that was very obviously what they were thinking when they had the unnamed Necron warriors slash like the Chaos androids of Space Crusade during Rogue Trader.
Ah, the Chaos androids.
Yeah, and
Yes.
like Asshole Otep and everything before they were really the Necrons, and and it's just like they're living metal, they can reform from anything, but like they don't look organic. They still look like robots. They still have like, sprockets and servos and coiling wires and everything.
Well, I mean, if it's a fluid that's just kind of flowing around, that's not exactly the best at exerting very precise force
Well,
in a particular
yeah. We should
direction.
say
You want to have hard and then soft.
we
People.
misspoke. They look like the T800, but they act
They
like the
do.
T1000. But
Yes,
the only
exactly.
things that like they act like the T1000 and they can reform from anything, but like the only units in this codex that actually reform, that like move around and actually shape like liquid metal, like a T1000 from Terminator 2, are actually the Satan themselves, as opposed to the Necron, like the rest of the Necron models that are just like they can rebuild themselves, but they don't really like change and manipulate their forms really. So it's never really explained why, but during the era that this codex was written, there was no reason to explain it. It was just like they're horrifying and they're coming for you. And if you want to find out more about them, well, good luck. You're gonna get shot. Like, because they had several. There was books at the time, like not at the time of this, but like in the years later, before the 5th edition codex, where you like there's like a Caiaphas Cain book and a Caiaphas Cain short story where he was in a Necron tomb with like some like the short story where he was in a Necron tomb with some Adeptus Mechanicus guys that were like, let's explore what this is. I'm so fascinated by it, and he's just sitting there like, you guys are idiots. We should get out of here. This is all super dangerous.
Let's explore this ancient Xenotech tomb. Nothing could possibly go wrong.
Well, I like what's cool about this.
This won't be like the other 2,000 times we've done exactly the same thing.
And everyone has died on the expedition. Like, a thing about that's funny is that this book also has some really good artwork of Adeptus Mechanicus.
Oh yeah, it really does. This was an era of, well,
inspired aesthetics.
Inspired aesthetics, yes, but there was a real passion for it, and the aesthetics themselves weren't so set in stone by corporate mandate and designed by committee that artists didn't have room to put their own flair on things and really put their own interpretation on. And this was an era of very experimental artwork as well. It's a lot of it is just absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, there's a lot of it that looks really trashy by today's standards, but there was still more passion in it and more creativity in it that you'll really be able to see through.
I would argue, well, firstly, a good example of this is actually what we explored last time with the Tau Codex, where like they had images in that book of the various like Tau aircraft, like the Tiger Shark and stuff, that like they were allowed to draw the pieces, like draw images of them and draw images of the Manta and everything before they even had models. Or if they had models, they were tiny little models for Battlefleet Gothic that you didn't have any details on. And like, you were right, it was an era when like the artists had a lot more creative freedom and were thus more passionate about it.
Yeah, they didn't have to look at the model design and say, okay, well, just make this look good. And it's just like some ugly piece of crap that GW just shat out of a plastic printer.
Yeah,
and
like everything they do today.
It's going to be the next best thing, and so we need to AstroTurf for this.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I would argue that a lot of the artwork that they did in this era that was trashy was for factions that were supposed to look trashy, to be fair. So like,
for sure.
The Eldar and the a lot of the Eldar, the Necrons, like most of the Xenos races looked very, very cool and unique. A lot of the chaos and like a lot of like the trashy looking stuff was like,
they had a lot of glam rock aesthetics as well.
And but like fun. The glam rock kind of tapered off in this era too. Like the Eldar in second edition.
This was kind of the last gasp of it.
The Eldar of second edition versus the Eldar of third and fourth edition is like way different though. Like, because like the only real glam, like even like the Noise Marines was like the Noise Marines started off as literally as glam rock band members in first and second edition. Like the end of first, about the time of second edition. And then like by the time the third edition Chaos book came out, they had their own models and they looked more like Hellraiser freaks with sound guns than glam rockers. Like, and the only Eldar models that still had like crazy glam rock mohawks and 80s hair and everything, and like the poofy like 80s hair were like Harlequins, which they were supposed to look like that because they're fucking clowns. And yeah, like I would argue like some of the most trashy looking stuff is a lot of the Imperial stuff actually, which like either would
they had
Necromunda artwork, like
Necromunda is exactly what I was going to say. The Hive Gangers,
which they're supposed to look like garbage. Like
they are wearing literal trash bags that they've woven into ballistic armor. It's supposed to look like garbage.
Even so,
there were still some questionable.
That's a lore sinkhole if there was one. Oh yeah, I got some bone meal and a loom we made out of like some garbage driftwood. Obviously, I can now create a 6+ armor save. What?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Just mesh armor is a meme.
Mesh armor is a very big meme.
So here's the inside cover, and this is just a horrifying fucking sight. Because to this day, that many monoliths is not to be fucked with. Like
that is a lot of points, and if you are playing with this many points against Necrons, you got problems.
yeah, that means there's obviously a pylon in the background ready to nuke your HQ. Like just
Yeah.
oh, you guys don't use nuclear weapons anymore. That's cute. What are you gonna do, Exterminatus? Then we have
Yeah,
even
well, you get little cyclonic torpedoes and everything. Where are your atomics, though?
yeah, like look at this. Even the artwork that they did for the fucking table of contents was cool. Like just
Yeah,
like
that is.
like just big pimping. And a thing about this is that's cool to notice is that a lot of the internal artwork was done by Carl Kopinski. Like David Gallagher, Paul Dayton, and Alex Boyd did a lot. But Carl Kopinski, he has his own style, as you can see from the piece on the front. But a lot of the work that he does actually looks like it's almost like he does his own take on work that
John Blanche.
yeah, John Blanche. Like yeah, Carl he a lot of the work for John Blanche, and like his style, like he's doing his own style, but he's aping John Blanche's style in the sense that like there's a lot of pieces that are kind of like incomplete in the background and shadowy and have weird forms, but like and jagged differences, but at the same time it's obviously like it's not totally John Blanche, but it looks like it's a style, and I kind of dig that, even though I don't know if it should.
He's taking existing trends in the art of 40K and kind of changing them. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he's aping John Blanche as much as it is he's aping other artists in general, of whom John Blanche is the most predominant.
Well, I'll show you I'll show you some pieces in a second. You'll see what I mean though, because it really does look a lot like his work. But he aside from that, this was written by Andy Chambers, Pete Haynes, peace be upon them, and then Andy Hoare, who is gone. Like Andy Chambers and Andy Hoare are pretty much gone. I don't know if Pete Haynes is still working at GW. And then Graham McNeil and Phil Kelly. God damn it! Like Graham McNeil, he's in the same category as Gav Thorpe. He's a great idea guy, but his actual like work, especially his prose, is awful a lot of the time. And though he has like a very very dedicated fan following, and same for Phil Kelly. Though Phil Kelly is like one of the biggest. Phil Kelly is like Matt Ward, but much more insidious in that people thought he had a much better balanced writing. Like they thought that he like wrote a lot better than him. He was much more balanced about writing, but ultimately, ultimately he would do a lot of work that would systematically ruin factions that weren't Eldar, and while he continued to buff Eldar at every possible opportunity.
It was a very slow process, but
Yeah.
in retrospect, it's kind of dope.
Yeah. And then the editing and layout, the color production, the graphic design, was all really cool. And I'm thinking Stefan Kopinski is related to Carl. And then miniatures design, Tim Adcock, and then of course Juan Diaz and Jess Goodwin, who are still great. And then Mark Harrison and Alex Hedstrom. Hedstrom did a lot of cool work with miniatures. And then like here's the heavy metal team. We have models and scenery, and they used to do special thanks, and like it's kind of like in lore special thanks to Ancient and Honorable Order of Tech Priests that do all the computer shit for us because we're dumb GW. And they got their own custom fonts.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, the customary introduction page. Let's tell you about them, who they are, and then why to get their army. It's like, and I love how the why collect the Necron army is basically because you want to just move your units across the board and watch your opponent increasingly get more hysterical as turns go on. That was basically it. If you're looking to field an elite army that can deal out a horrendous amount of punishment while shrugging off all but the most potent incoming fire, the Necrons are ideal. Also, they're very easy to paint, which they are. Like Necrons, to paint Necrons essentially was do a lot of like base coat, a lot of dry brushing, and then attach the the little like gauze pieces after you're done painting. Please do that after you're done painting. Oh God, please.
But people still didn't.
Yeah,
and they still forgot.
This is the first example. I mean, yeah, I've seen that before. I've also seen Necron armies where people like painted over their little gauze pieces, and instead like painted them differently and then used different glow paints, so they came back looking different because they wanted their gauze colors to be, instead of like a green, they wanted them to look blue or something, which was cool. And then I've seen an army where, like, you remember back in the day when like the first the Star Wars the prequel movies were in theater during the same era, and in back in that day, like there was a lot of Star Wars Lego sets being made. I saw people would take the lightsaber pieces from Star Wars Lego kits and put them in on special models and stuff, because the lightsaber pieces were a similar thing where it was a
I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, like where you like, because it would be like, they would get like the lightsaber pieces from like a Darth Maul kit or something, and it's like, look, it's red gauze. Although like those lightsaber pieces were a little thinner, but I've seen it done before, and it looked cool when the guy converted it properly. But I mean, conversions are great. This piece here is the first example I wanted to point to. This is Karl Kopinski, but doesn't it kind of look like a John Blanche piece in like how it's like incomplete, and he's got like the line work,
I mean,
is messy?
Yes and no. I wouldn't. The line work isn't really that. It has the incompleteness, but the line work is actually really clear. It's the shading that's messy.
Yeah, but he does have the line work come off here. But it's almost like he does it. He like the incompleteness for John Blanche like comes naturally in his work, where he's just like, this is just my style. And then for Kopinski, it almost seems like he's deliberately doing it.
I see elements of that, but I still see a very distinct style that's having a different styles, techniques applied to it.
Yeah, but considering how much work he did for this, and we're probably like, I'm afraid we're wrong if this is like a Paul Dayton piece or something, but
I really don't
know. Considering how much artwork is in this that's totally new for this codex, because this is like, a lot of this artwork was not stuff that they had in any previous books prior. And that's a trend that GW no longer follows, where like 6th edition onward, most of their codexes did copy pasted, like tons and tons of copy pasta stuff and tons of ZBrush stuff, when it wasn't copy pasted, where it was like an edit or something that was new, but it was made entirely in ZBrush. And it was sad, because like it used to be every time there was a new codex, like almost everything in it was new. It was a tremendous like piece of work of art on its own, without the rules or the fluff. And like I'm wondering if like during this era of Karl Kopinski and the rest of the art team really loved Necrons, because there's so much unique new art in this that is totally different. And this is where like we got the whole like, this is probably the piece that showed us how that informed Relic when they designed Dark Crusade. How like Necron warriors would fight in melee combat, where they're just like, yep, my gun's an axe.
Yeah, and they just kind of beat you over the head with it, and they're very like a brute force sort of feel with it. Yep. Just look at, like, there's no subtlety here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not in terms of like art, but like in terms of like the character itself, there's no subtlety. This is very much just, he's going to smack you with this axe in a perfectly downward stroke, and that's it. There's
not going for a feint. There's no parries.
He's not trying to, get around your shield or anything. If you're raising a shield, he's just going to smack it.
Yeah, like.
And that's all. He's just going to do that, and then he's going to pull it straight back up, almost robotically, and then do it again.
Almost robotically, he says.
Oh, well. He does have like an almost organic sort of feel to this as well. Like there's very,
but I mean, it is a skeleton.
So it's more reminiscent of like undeath than just like pure machine,
which is
intentional. But it's a very robotic or a very.
I'm sure Kopinski did a lot of work for the Tomb Kings in Warhammer Fantasy. So I'm sure he did a lot of work for the Tomb Kings in Fantasy, and like the other artists as well.
If you go over to the next page, go back one. If you go to the next page,
well, this is
you see what I'm talking about. Where they, like I said, they're they're kind of crouching in a way that's it's almost, like almost like an actual, living soldier or like a living, breathing creature. But there's still that sort of sense of foreboding, and then that sense of this is something that is not alive. This is something that is,
yeah.
While it may incidentally adopt stances or movements that are similar to living beings. This is
Listen and understand.
yeah.
It's a machine. It doesn't feel pity, remorse, or fear, and it will not stop ever until you have fed its deities. I probably fucked up that quote.
This is what I meant when I said almost machine, because there is still. Look how the other one is, he's leaning into his Gauss rifle a little bit, and this one is he's crouching, and the one in the background.
And you can't tell if that's an effect of like just the artist's interpretation, or if there is actually like they were advised on this, and the writers were like, well, they used to be alive before they turned into metal things, so maybe, and it's like the faintest vestiges of, for lack of a better term.
So they really do. They blur the line. Yeah. They're not like the the Legio Cybernetica or whatever, or they're not even really like tech priests.
Well,
they're
very
distinct.
Cybernetica were just really big stompy robots. Like
that's exactly what I mean. Is these are not big stompy robots. These not exactly subtle, but lither and almost more organic machines.
Yeah, and then. Like, we have, of course, the customary short story indicating, like, how fucked shit is. Like, look at some Cadians, and they're gonna die.
I really enjoy I enjoy how done with your shit this Necron in particular looks.
It's not even because he has an expression on his face. Like, isn't there's a word for this?
It is the slouch and like the way that his everything is angled, and he's just staring right at something. He's like
the customary Warhammer pauldrons just there. Like,
he
doesn't even really need these. It's just
he doesn't, but they're there, and he is just done with whatever is going on. Slightly to the right.
There's an effect. There's a print. It's not a. I said a word earlier, but it's not really a word. But there's a principle in acting about like it's the something effect for masks, where the idea is that like you'd think that a mask,
the angle that the mask is at with respect to
you think that an inert object going over an actor's face, in this case an actor being like a soulless husk, would decrease the amount of emotion you may show, but in fact it actually magnifies certain emotions and everything. And that's in full play with a lot of the Necrons, where they have the same expression, but depending on how the head is tilted and everything, you might be like, this Necron Lord is looking like confused. This Necron Lord is looking determined.
In this one, though, the line work is a little bit blurred in place. It's very sharp in places where whatever it is in focus, and more towards the outer edges of the center. But then if you look around his torso and then around, closer to the barrel of the Gauss rifle, it gets a little bit more sketchy.
Yeah, this piece was done. Well, here's the cool thing about this effect. This effect here, I should note, like all this stuff here, like this background that could be anything. This piece was done by a guy who, I don't know if this is Paul Dayton or if it's Carl Kopinski or if it's somebody else on the art team. But I've seen this art style before, and it mostly features a lot in the Tyranid and Chaos Codexes. And a cool thing about this effect is that a lot of the stuff that they worked in was grayscale, like all black and white like this.
Yeah.
But he has this weird effect in the background of like almost like these extra watercolor dabblings of just like, oh, that's just how it comes out. That all like, and in scenes like this where you have motion or like the feeling of motion and the feeling of combat, it's really cool with the darkness and the light, because it's like implying there's a lot of gore and particles and violence in the background that might not actually be there, and you can't see.
It does a really good job.
Yeah, and like he's got that hard edge on this where it's like I like this here. This is like this is just such a simple thing, like this little line here, but the fact that it's like it's got this line, these two lines here that indicate that these are both edges on the blade. And this like axe halberd blade you got here, and I just dig it. And then this whole thing, like other than just this cool border work that is there, that like it could be Mechanicus overlaying on Necron stuff, it could be Necron stuff, who knows. This is the whole the format following where they're like, let's start with how all this happened, everybody. And it's like, let's like, how did we get here? And it's the Imperium in this case. Like it's almost like an Imperial narrator explaining, like, yeah, the tech priest fucked up.
And, as they are wont to do, they fucked up yet again.
Especially in this edition, where like third edition, like more modern tech priests, like since the Horus Heresy started getting written,
they like, tried to make them less hilariously incompetent.
Yeah, but in third edition, Adeptus Mechanicus was written almost like they were just blithering retards 9 times out of 10. Like,
it's not even that they were blithering retards. They were just blinded by hubris and their avarice for technology. And all of the stuff about tech heresy and pursuing heretics to the ends of the galaxy and so on, that honestly grew over time from roots that are initially... Yeah, obviously, if you're not a tech priest, you can't mess around with this sort of thing. But their lust for xenotechnology was far more exaggerated in earlier editions.
But because in earlier editions, it was more like the tech heresy angle was like nobody but the AdMech is allowed to mess with technology at all. Like other than basic repairs of guns. You can't be touching this. This is my job.
Yes, and then the whole over time that kind of got flanderized to be okay. Well, even Adeptus Mechanicus like initiates aren't allowed to deviate from how you're allowed to touch and repair the guns.
Yeah,
which it got flanderized over time, as I said.
Yeah, it really did. But worse than that was like in the initial phase, like even when it was kind of ridiculous, it's also like it was really cool in that regard because you had the whole angle of, well, the AdMech is this client state, but they're obviously trying to screw people. Like it would be like, sometimes they would be like, don't mess with this because it's a plasma gun. You're going to blow it up in your face, or don't mess with this. It's actually like, this is not a cogitator. This is not a basic like cogitator running like shitty code. This is like a fragment of an AI that we chained into a box and have it do calculations for us, and I don't want you to mess with it. But 9 times out of 10, it would be like, we can't let them fuck with our economic monopoly on managing their technology. If Guardsman Schmo knows how to, like, fix his toaster, then, like, 5 of my tech adepts don't have jobs anymore. And that was the cool thing where there was a lot more subtlety in earlier 40K is basically what I'm saying. And as far as that extends to xenotechnology, was like the cool thing about it was, with aside from the purview of Inquisitors, everybody outside of the AdMech didn't mess with the AdMech. So the AdMech had a lot of, like, especially in this era, had a lot of leeway into looking into xenotechnology, whereas modern 40K would have you believe that, like, aside from the Eldar and the Tau, anytime you look into any kind of xenotechnology at all, like, an Inquisitor will just show up out of nowhere and blow your brains out.
And and it was even worse than that. The authority the Inquisitors themselves had over the Mechanicus has changed with time and kind of gone up and down in really weird ways.
Yeah.
But the people have kind of forgotten that the Treaty of Mars was, it was recognizing the Adeptus Mechanicus as a concurrent and parallel empire.
Yeah, they had their own sovereignty.
Yeah, they are a client state, or they are a sovereign but subordinate state to the Imperium, but only subordinate directly to the Emperor. Outside of him, you're not allowed to tell them what to do.
Yeah, and a big thing about this is that also we should note that the AdMech during this era was atrophied, like from a meta perspective, was very atrophied. Not like in universe, like, oh, they're dying. I mean, in a sense that between 3rd edition and 6th edition, so beginning of 3rd edition until the end of 5th edition, the Adeptus Mechanicus had next to no real, like, they had a lot of, like, side stuff, but they had, like, no real focus in any of the mainline lore. And so, like, the way the canon works in 40K, which, like, when it does work at all, is essentially whatever GW declares is the word of God is, like, the primary canon. Then after that is the core rulebooks, then the codexes, and then after that, Black Library stuff, and then beyond Black Library is additional canon sources that are like canonized video games, canonized comics, and canonized and of course the Fantasy Flight game stuff for their RPG, for Dark Heresy and Only War and so such. And because of that, during this era, the vast majority of really like deep, like the like deeper, more uh for lack of a better term, I guess like conclusive lore on and circumspect lore on the Adeptus Mechanicus was stuff that came out of Dark Heresy 1.0 and onward by Fantasy Flight Games. So like a lot of this, like if you read only GW stuff until the Scutari Codex came out or something, you'd wonder if like the Adeptus Mechanicus does nothing but like die horribly to local Xenos in the lore and then occasionally fix coasters.
I still maintain that the FFG lore from like this area approximate is some of the best lore to have
early
ever been
mid 2000s. Yeah.
Yes, the Fantasy Flight Games lore is some of the best lore to have ever been written.
Yeah, the rules are terrible. The rules suck. Like
they're very similar to RuneQuest, which is an RPG system I'm very fond of. But they go off in certain directions with it, and they give you options in certain ways.
And they're very bad on the clarification standpoint.
Yeah,
they're really terrible editors. But
parts of their lore as well were like just like stupid. But and there were a fair few cases of. Well, I'm just going to outright say it: writers self-inserting.
Oh yeah.
Or otherwise developing personal favorites for their own insertions into the canons. Characters that they favored over others in their own canon.
Or just stuff that was like ripped off from other places, like or rather like they had a lot of stuff that were just referential that grew out of control. Like Captain Harlock started as an offhand reference to an anime that was like to a relatively like venerable anime manga series, or anime and manga series, I should say.
Yeah, and then they just kind of grew out of control and became
into a fan fiction character that you follow for 3 campaigns. Like
you follow for 3 campaigns and you never get to talk to him, and he's just a ridiculous Mary Sue with all this special snowflake stuff happening, and
I tamed the tyrant star to resurrect my wife, and you can't even tell me I'm an idiot before I teleport.
You can't even tell me I'm an idiot because I teleport away before your characters get to shoot at me or do anything.
Yeah.
Because I'm so special, and they need me for a future adventure module that they never wrote.
Yeah, and just because they just every single time they came out with like the first 3 RPGs they can't. This is all like off topic, but the first 3 RPGs they came out with were like Dark Heresy, Death Watch, and Rogue Trader, and all 3 of those were written concurrently with each other, and they all had their splats being written, even though like the RPG was finished, and they would move on to the next one. So they'd finish Dark Heresy and they'd move on to Death Watch, but then they would start writing splat books for Dark Heresy while they were still writing Death Watch. So all of that content was like much more together. And then about the time they started writing Black Crusade, they just threw the meta canon of just all the subsetting lore that they had done for the Calixic Sector and the Expanse and everything out the window. They were just like
threw it out the window.
They were just like, all right, we're going to the Screaming Vortex now. And then they botched that. Like Black Crusade had the best written rule system, but god damn it, its lore was stupid. Like or some of its lore was stupid. There's a lot of little things that were really great, but anyway, the point we were trying to make about
what I was trying to say,
is that during this era, especially for the splat books for Dark Heresy and some of the stuff for Rogue Trader that Fantasy Flight Games wrote, they fleshed out, at least for the Calixic Sector and the Expanse, the Calixic Sector and the Coronis Expanse, they fleshed out a lot about the Adeptus Mechanicus. Though, like, to the point where it got
a lot of it was dumb, like the Lord's Dragon, Late Worlds, the Lord's Dragon in particular, stuff like that.
The Lord's Dragon was kind of cool. Like, it's cool in concept of just the whole Martian secret police, and then it was stupid.
No, it was cool in concept, but the way it was implemented and described was ridiculously special snowflake.
Yeah. And the worst thing about it
was very much just, we want a tech priest only equivalent of the Inquisition, and it was really dumb.
And well, the worst thing about it
hold on. I wanted to say more about this
Okay.
Previously. The best parts of the FFG lore were them describing just the day-to-day way that the Imperium functions, and then the lower level, more granular activities of the Imperium and the various other factions in the setting. Go like saying, okay, well, here's how, if you're just a street level cleric preaching the word of the Emperor, or if you're just some scum in like the lower hive or some such. And all very, very good prose and very good descriptions, and a very well thought out understanding of how all these things sort of interlocked. But when it came to stuff like meta plots and like overarching stories, like the Tyrant Star, for instance, they did have a tendency to drop the ball more often than not, because they kind of got too enthused of their own high concept, high minded, we want to tell this story, it's about whatever, and so on and so forth, that they didn't think how to make it actually fit as well as it could have in the setting, or they didn't think how to avoid stepping on the toes of other parts of the setting implicitly, or otherwise how to make it tonally coherent and compatible.
Yeah.
And so you had the shit like with Harlock, as was mentioned earlier.
And what I was going to say in reference to both what you said back and referencing back to the Necrons here, and what I was saying before about how like they had that linearity problem for the first 3 RPGs that they threw out the window, was all of this came to a head because like when it came to Necrons, they basically like essentially soft rebooted at least the crunch side, like the actual like gameplay elements of their system when they came out with Black Crusade. And they had to, because they were basing everything off of like they were linearly basing everything off of like the systems they had done for Deathwatch that got completely out of control for gameplay wise, to the point where you had stuff like Tau commanders with 90 wounds and stuff like that to make them a real challenge, because damage numbers and stat numbers and everything were so bloated out of control in that initial draft of the system, that they had all of the, and they had like the issue with that as this relates to this is that they had all of these Adeptus Mechanicus subplots and Inquisitor subplots and Rogue Trader subplots that were relating back to the Necrons and eventually trying to build towards having Necrons, and they just never really did it because most of the because like by the time that they actually were getting around to that from a liturgical like storytelling perspective, on the stat side, on the crunch side, their system had gotten so out of control they had to reboot it, or else the Necrons would have just broken the system in half and nothing would have been playable. And so they had all this AdMech stuff, and then it's not really a thing when they finally come out with more actual rules for Necrons beyond like having scarabs, warriors, and a single lord. And all of those rules are in Black Crusade for a single adventure where there's like randomly a Necron tomb world stuck in a fucking warp storm. And of course, this was after the 5th edition retcons, where like the Necrons are not at all like they were when they started writing those books.
No, the way the Necrons were characterized changed while FFG was still in the process of writing about the Necrons for their tabletop game.
Yeah, and I mean, you could argue that like they could have compensated for it better, but this is Fantasy Flight Games we're talking about. They don't really compensate for problems. They just kind of go, okay, we're gonna make another RPG now instead, because
we're just gonna retcon it and just pretend what we did before didn't happen.
Yeah, because like that's what they do.
Or not even really retcon, just ignore it.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we ran into some problems. All right, drop all development of this RPG. Let's go make another card game. Like that's how they operated.
I mean, the card games aren't bad.
No, they're like none of their.
I really like their Star Wars card.
None of their products are really like overtly bad. They're like when they're bad, they're subtly bad. They're insidiously bad, but like they're like their actual like design philosophy and everything is kind of screwed. But we should move on to yet more fluff and lore. Cool little data slate thing about like the Imperium being like, oh god, This is bad. We have this prophecy we took from some guys who talked to Eldar once, and they're talking about all kinds of weird shit we didn't think about, and like this is cool.
We talked to Eldar once. Everything is doomed.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, and it's always Uthway. They never talk to like Eldar from a different craft world.
No. It's always Uthway. They're the ones.
They don't talk to Dark Eldar. They don't talk to Exodites. They talk to Uthway.
No, never.
Uthway show up and are like, everything's fucked, guys. And they're like, obviously these guys know what they're doing. They've only lost.
They don't. Well, the reason they don't talk to Exodites is they don't want to like show up on an Exodite world and
get eaten by dinosaurs.
No, then they hear like ominous banjo music playing in the background. It's like Deliverance.
Oh no! Hey man, it's, like Exodites are such an unexplored thing because the Wood Elves are so like the Wood Elves lore, at least in Warhammer Fantasy, is so crazy and cool. And then Exodites are just like they're there. They're just there.
We don't care about them because we only care about high elves and dark elves.
We don't even talk.
They're our favorites.
Like yeah, it's like our like. Dude,
it's just favoritism.
There's 5 major factions of Eldar in 40k: Craftworlders, Exodites, Dark Eldar, Harlequins, and Corsairs. And the Corsairs and the Exodites are more numerous and have greater influence on the galaxy as a whole than the Harlequins do, and the Harlequins get their own codex.
That's because they're more special snowflake and they're edgier.
Yeah, and
like, these are the fags that are like, oh, you know. Kefka from Final Fantasy VI is my favorite villain. You remember that shit.
Yes, exactly. I know exactly what you mean. But I should note that at some point we're going to have to. There was like a there's a 3rd edition like work in progress codex there was 2 actually. One done for assassins for the Officio Assassinorium, and one done for Harlequins. Both by Gav Thorpe, I think, and the Harlequin one is the most insane bullshit I've ever read. Like the rules in the for the context of 3rd edition were so over the top, it was crazy. That was where the first solitaires were introduced, and the solitaires were nuts. Like they had a rule where they had a 12-inch charge, and they got 1 additional attack in the assault phase for every unused inch of charge they used after 6 inches. So if they charged you, they had like base 5 attacks, and if they charged at you from 6 inches away, they would get 6 additional attacks on the charge. It was stupid, but back to this.
This is your brain on elves.
An Eldar, yeah, this is your brain on elves. This is an Eldar prophecy, Asurian, Eye of Aisha, yada yada. But this is the first in-lore reference, at least in this codex. There might have been little snippets here and there because the Necrons were around since 1st edition in a weird way. But this is the first in-lore snippet where they talk about the dragon, the outsider, the Nightbringer, and the Deceiver all at once. And like the dragon and the outsider don't even have rules in this codex. So you can imagine that they plan to include them later, or at least like have the dragon have some major influence on the Mechanicus, because they reference that a lot, how like the dragon doesn't really show up physically because he doesn't hang out with the Necrons. He's busy being worshipped by the Mechanicus, and is just like, yes,
he has
more cybernetics.
He has found a different species that is more pleasing to him.
Yeah. And then I'll reference that like the outsider will get out of his fucking Dyson sphere any second now, as soon as like some murder starts happening. But more lore and cool background images. Like this is a classic one. This is like this piece. Honestly, like this piece felt to me like this art piece, like it's a splash page across 2 pages of just a Necron tomb world that's like been weathered by time, and a single like Imperial cruiser or like landing ship even flying towards it, like in like not even in orbit, like actually over the surface. Like, oh god, what is this? This is all this stuff. This piece felt to me more like what Prometheus the movie was going for than the actual movie did. Like that whole ancient aliens, ancient civilization, been here forever kind of feeling that movie botched. Like a lot of the old Necron artwork actually made me feel more. You know what I'm saying?
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yep. And then
that is okay. Here we go with this bitch.
This is possibly one of my favorite short stories in 40k ever. Is this little piece where like this is the Calidus assassin who like the Callous Assassin had this thing called the Satan Phase Blade in this edition, and it was one of the only things in the game where it ignored invulnerable saves, in addition to like armor saves in close combat. And this piece, you should read it yourself at any point, dear listener. But this short story is so great because it's a Callous Assassin on a mission going to stab this governor, and she stabs this governor in the back with a Satan Phase Blade, like, all right, it's over. And then he starts laughing, and she's like, the fuck? And it's like, his head spins like 180 degrees, and is like, oh man, this is delicious. I'm so glad you brought part of my body back to me. And then it reveals that it's a deceiver. It's like the Satan, the deceiver, who's just like his whole plan was like, yeah, I wanted that Satan Phase Blade back, so I orchestrated this whole like planetary this whole governor based planetary rebellion so that they would
that you would send you to stab me with it.
Yeah. And like there's actually a special rule that we'll read later where like if you stab a Satan with a phase blade, the phase blade gets absorbed into their body. Like they can't attack you. Instead, the phase blade absorbs into their body and they're disarmed for the rest of the game.
Yep.
And then, like, of course, next page, there's more lore, and they have the Colexius Assassin, who's also relevant because the Colexius Assassin is a pariah. And this was the lore back then that the Satan were the ones that put the pariah gene in the human gene pool, like during prehistory. And we're just like, yes, we have figured out a way to create a genetic marker that makes you born without a soul. That's how crazy we are. We can genetically remove your soul.
See, what was... Well, I don't really remember, and I would actually have to reread this section. Wasn't it also implied in this edition that the Nightbringer being the reason that living organisms on Earth are afraid of dying?
Yes. Well, it's more that I think they changed the implication to the reason why so many human cultures viewed, and in the case of Eldar, like with Death Jesters and Dark Reapers, viewed death as a harvester figure, was because the Nightbringer had a cloak and a scythe, and he was just so scary that he put the fear, like he put the artistic he was so scary that he put the artistic idea and the artistic image of death as a grim reaper in the genetic memory of this entire species, if not several others. And like the whole cloak and scythe thing is entirely because the Necrons just like scythes. And like they sculpted him with a scythe when they created his necrodermis body, and were like, that scythe looks pretty pimp, you should use it. And he was like, I'm gonna use it.
I mean, they were space Egyptians, so it's sort of like a very different looking Khopesh, really.
Yeah, but in this edition, what's weird is that the scythe on the Nightbringer on his model and in the artwork during this edition actually looks like just a regular harvester scythe without the handles.
Whereas, without all the weird shit.
The Necrons were very, very subtly space Egyptians in this edition. Like they had... Because a lot of the artists were the same ones who worked on...
as blatantly like, no, Tomb Kings.
Yeah, because a lot of the artists were the same ones who worked on the Tomb Kings for fantasy, but they mostly, for the most part, had a totally different culture. As a matter of fact, they didn't even really have a culture. Like, there was implications of a culture, but the idea is that, like, you know, the Necron Lords were the only ones who remembered it, and the rest of the race was just soulless machines. And then, more lore... We get our first image of a flayed one, which was... In this edition, the flayed ones were really weird because there was just no explanation of why they wanted to wear people's skins. They just did. They just did, and that should be scary enough for you.
Yep.
And then we get our first bits of crunch, and a really cool thing to note here, in addition... Like, just general breakdown, the cool old system they had where everybody had their own icons for what the mission choices you had... As opposed to where in modern 40k, like 5th edition onward, where they just had the Space Marine markings for troops, elites, fast attack, HQ elements, whatever. And like, you know, it used to be like every race had their own icon that they used for the same slot choices. And then really cool thing here was talking about their notes for campaign play, where they're like, they don't get experience because they're robots. Satan don't get experience because they've been around for millions of years. Capturing Necrons, you can't capture them because they'll phase out. And then like they had sentry rules where the Necron warriors wouldn't reanimate if they were killed as sentries because for the sake of fairness, because they actually cared about that during this edition. And then the sustained attack scenario where Necrons didn't phase out during this specific scenario, and that means you might be boned. No pun intended. Like, but and as a phase out, we'll explain here. These were their army-wide special rules, which are all of these in this edition. Like to this day, some of this stuff is still nasty in regards to the rest of 40k. But like at the time, this stuff was ridiculous. We'll be back functionally meant the way it worked was like if you killed them without using a weapon that totally ignored their armor saves or was double their strength, they would on a 4+ get back up the next turn. And then there were instances where they could self-repair earlier than that or ignore the stipulations of armor saves and everything. And they could form new units and switch around the coherency of units by doing this because it was based on the range at which units got back up. And that was just terrifying because it also affected victory points where if a unit, like if you killed a unit nearly to a man and then most of them got back up, you didn't get victory. Like at the end of the game, the victory points would only
victory points were how many stayed dead.
Yeah, stayed dead the whole game.
Yeah. Like if they came back, no.
Yeah, and then you had like Necron Lords ignored half the stipulations where they could just get up if they were alone. And then Tomb Spiders were even more ridiculous where if Necrons were within 6 inches of them and even if they couldn't self-repair normally, the Tomb Spider would just pick them back up and then teleport them to a different unit that needed a guy. And then the big deal was phase out, which if a Necron army was reduced to a quarter or less of its original number of models at any given point, the rest of the army would disappear. This was, at the time, and still to this day, I guess, bullshit. Because, like, it was bullshit in a very specific way where it was like, oh yeah, you can just lose the game if you happen to, like, get down to this quarter. And, like, even if you could pull it out, you could just lose the game. However, it was necessary in this edition because if you didn't have that rule, a Necron army could like possibly steamroll everything forever, because you would have no recourse of how to really get rid of them.
This was implemented just so that the enemy has a different option available, rather than just okay, we'll just kill and then hope that they don't resurrect. It's if you can get them down to 25% or less for one turn, then they disappear, even if they would have resurrected the next.
Yeah.
And that was the idea. You just need to push them down below that much just once, and then you win. Even if, they might have come back otherwise. And
then to be fair to the Necron player, like, it only applied to actual Necron units. So, like, Pariahs, Scarabs, Monoliths, and Tomb Spiders and Satan didn't count for that. And then phase out would be calculated after they did the will be back rules, which, like, that's just a giant Arnold reference. Like, that's just a Terminator reference was the rule name. Like, later on, they changed it to reanimation protocols, which makes more sense, but it kind of loses some of the flavor of when they were just like...
Oh, it was after Will Be Back. I totally forgot.
Yeah. Like, originally it was Will Be Back, and then they changed it after to reanimation protocols, because they were like, we can't just keep... They were like, oh no, we're embarrassed, because in the past we ripped off 80s action movies. Oh no. Like, as if people didn't know that 40k is nothing but a pile of rip-offs. Like...
Which, honestly, that just defeats the purpose, then, of having phase out if it happens after We'll Be Back. Now that
well, the reason why is because, like, We'll Be Back on its own wasn't that devastating for Necron Warriors and Immortals and everything. Reason why phase out could be ridiculous, would be ridiculous one way or another without that rule is because Necron Lord, like Tomb Spiders and Necron Lords with Resurrection Orbs could resurrect stuff on the fly and ignore a lot of the stipulations. So, like, the best way to actually
with respect to will be back alone phase out has no
like, one of the best things you could do to stop Necrons from coming back was basically get a Space Marine captain or a Chaos Lord in close combat with them with a power weapon. Or, like, a Tyranid Carnifex. Tyranid Carnifex could ruin an entire Necron squad, just because even if it didn't kill them all, like, it's a monstrous creature, it ignores armor saves. So every time it would kill a Necron model, it was considered that the Carnifex was just stamping this thing to death, and it was just a pile of mush and couldn't, like, resurrect itself. Unless a Necron Lord came along with a Resurrection Orb and just laughed in its face, which was a common thing. Because Necron Lord's that was basically what you did with a Necron Lord, is you have him walk up with a Resurrection Orb and laugh at you. And then they had these things I really enjoy here. Like, yeah, that's wordy shit, but I enjoy these a lot. I enjoy all this a lot because this is all very obviously added for the sake of game balance. And this is a thing that doesn't happen anymore. And it showed that, like, at the time, the writers actually gave a shit about people having fun and having a balanced game. So they said you can't chain teleport using Deep Strikes and Monoliths and Veil of Darkness. If you're fighting Necrons, if you have stuff that has a poison weapon or something, they're assumed automatically to use some other version of basically the same thing to hurt the Necrons anyway, because even though they're robots, it's just unfair if you say, oh yeah, Tyranids can't damage me because we're not organic, or splinter weapons can't damage us because we're not poison. Although this is very obviously written by Phil Kelly, who's like, oh no, but my splinter weapons and my agonizer. And then morale was a thing where, like, a big thing about this morale thing is that, like, it said Necrons, they don't have fear, don't really get that, but they still take leadership and morale pinning tests because robot logic. And that's a fine justification. The problem with this is that, like, later on, this kinds of justifications would only apply to armies GW didn't like. And they would, because they would, like, 4th edition, halfway through 4th edition onward, they had And They Shall Know No Fear for Space Marines, which basically said the morale system is pointless. We don't give a shit. Because every Space Marine army had And They Shall Know No Fear, where they just get to go, if we fail a leadership test, we'll rally at the end of the turn anyway. We can choose to fail certain tests. We can choose to take whatever reactions we want for pinning tests. Like this, that. We can choose to run away from combat and then immediately regroup. And it was functionally better than Fearless, because Fearless could lead you into situations where you'd get tar pitted or something. Whereas in They Shall Know No Fear, you get all the movement options of running away without any of the possibility of running off the board or anything.
Yeah, and it's what Fearless should have been, and it makes zero fucking sense that it isn't that. Other than just, oh well, we need to give them, some option to make them not. But this other faction, no, they can just do whatever they want.
Yeah, and that was but, like, to be fair, that was the thing that happened after. Though it does annoy me because this justification didn't even appear as really a rule in the 5th edition Codex.
No.
Where, like, you would have a bunch of Necron units that weren't fearless, even though they were robots. And that was during the edition when every single Space Marine army had And They Shall Know No Fear.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal. Moving on. Necron Armory, this is the good stuff. So these weapon profiles for their time were insane, because, like, all right, Gauss Flare, it's just a bolter, but it has the Gauss rule. Gauss Blaster, that's nasty. Gauss Cannon, nasty. Heavy Gauss Cannon was just a short range las cannon, but it also had the Gauss rule. Gauss Flux Arc was horrifying because this was D6 per target unit. And it went off to everything within 12 inches. So the way that worked was the monolith was, if you get within 12 inches of a monolith, you're going to get hit D6 times. You're going to get shot D6 times. And that was every single unit that got that close to a monolith. And, like, getting into close combat with the monolith was, and just punching it and throwing grenades on it was one of the only reliable ways to actually destroy it. So, like, that was terrifying. And then the Staff of Light was just really cool for being Strength 5 AP3. Was just, hey, look, my Necron Lord's actually really shooty. Pew pew. And then the Gauss weapons, which were... during this edition was when they were the most ridiculous, and then later on they got to be less so until about 5th, when they started introducing hull points, where Necrons went back to being cool again. because the whole like everything like if they wound you on a 6, it always wounds regardless of your toughness. If they do a d6 for armor pen, it's a glancing hit unless it would be a penetrating hit. And you could have a unit of like just Necron warriors. If they double tapped with the rapid fire into a land raider, they could reliably destroy it, because glancing hits back then were you roll on a chart, and on a 6 on the glancing hit, you roll a d6 on a chart, and on a 6 on the chart, the vehicle's destroyed anyway. You had a reliable chance with nearly everything in this army to destroy vehicles. Staff of Light, it's the thing of office. It's a power weapon in close combat. It's pretty cool. Particle Whip it's an ordnance weapon, but not really an ordnance weapon, but really an ordnance weapon that the monolith could use, where it's just and then you die. And then their only close combat weapon, the War Scythe, which was ridiculous because it rolled 2d6 for armor pen and ignored all forms of saves, including invulnerable saves. Just if this War Scythe is just going to kill you if it wounds. That's just how it goes. And like at the time, this was a big deal because there was only 2 other weapons in the game that ignored invulnerable saves. One of them was, and for several editions, like until 5th edition, about really when stuff ignoring invulnerable saves became more commonplace. The War Scythe was one. The Satan Phase Blade was another, which is funny because there's also a Satan weapon functionally, or Necrodermis weapon. And then the only one beside those was like the Incinerator that Sisters of Battle in some cases, but mostly Grey Knights only could take. And the Incinerator was only a heavy flamer. And like that, so its purpose was for killing demons. And then the real shenanigans of this that we get into for Necron Warrior was just all of these Lord options that they could take, where half of these options fundamentally did stuff that like no other army could do, and could like nearly break the game in some cases, like the Resurrection Orb.
I always had an issue with last part of the Gauss rules, where, for instance, a vehicle that treats glancing hits as penetrating hits,
yeah,
it still takes a glancing hit instead of a penetrating hit, which just seems cumbersome to me. And like, yeah, I get it. You don't want your fucking Hellhound to just get instantly exploded with no recourse, but it still makes the rule a bit awkward to have all these special cases, and it goes one way and then the other, and so on. They changed how Gauss weapons worked later, but
well, it was awkward on purpose because like the Hellhound was one of the only examples of this.
Yeah, I know it was, but it was still like the way that they went about implementing the Gauss quality. Yeah, it's fucking terrifying, but I don't know. I always took a little bit of an issue with like the precise phrasing of it being not as cohesive or like predictable as you know as it could have been, because you have to look and like, okay, well, here's this special case and then blah blah blah. And
yeah.
that was the case with a lot of stuff earlier on. It is rather than coming up with like just fundamental principles that you could then reason based off of, GW just included a lot of just special
exceptions
cases for every little thing.
Yeah, special cases and exceptions. To be fair though, like the in this edition, like the Hellhound and like some orc vehicles with like that were really ramshackle were the only ones that did that. And and like it was basically just there for fairness, which like once again it was a weird thing because you don't see that anymore, and I really appreciate that they were like, yeah, this
I really appreciate it as well, which it makes it obvious how many little wrinkles and issues there were with earlier editions having so many different rules and so on that just kind of stack on top of each other, that this becomes necessary at a point. Just because they didn't build it from the ground up with a plan, it just kind of evolved and grew, and then
yeah.
Other than that, the Necron armory is really, really solid for like their first edition.
Yeah, And I mean, you could argue
their
like,
first codex. I mean,
there's some stuff that got better, and there's some stuff that got worse for 5th edition.
Yeah, like the Staff of Light.
And there's some stuff that honestly should be more expanded upon. Like, I'm kind of upset that like about chronometrons, not because I think the chronometrons aren't cool, but because it's like Necrons have mastery over time and space that they can like you can have a handheld time machine.
Yeah.
Like you could have a handheld time machine, but it's the only example of a handheld time machine. Where it's like you get to roll extra dice for making sweeping advances and falling back and all these other things, but you don't like you didn't get to do stuff like, you know, you didn't get an invulnerable save out of it or something, or you didn't get to reroll saves out of it or something like that, or have other items.
They had stuff that like was cool, but they didn't really. They almost seemed like they didn't want to expand too much on it because they kind of saw where it would end up leading them. They didn't want to write all those rules and have like even more, you know, power bloat than they already had with the Necrons.
Yeah, and then Disruption Field, which this one is weird because almost all of these things are options only for Necron Lords, and then Disruption Field was an option for everybody. Like most units in the Codex had it as an option, and it was just like in melee you get to have the Gauss effect on your melee weapons.
Yeah,
and then
which was really really good.
Well, yeah, especially for its points cost was really
like it's 5 points to get the Gauss quality in melee.
Yeah, it's like it really, statistically
really good.
Statistically, it was better and more cost effective than crack grenades because crack grenades have always been kind of a sad joke. It's like, strength 6 anti-tank grenade because most vehicles in this game will get really fucked up by strength 6, won't they? No. Destroyer body. Like it's hefty cost, but it's a big deal because +1 toughness jet bike. Like
and
jet bike. Bike. Like you made your Necron Lord T6, and then he could fucking like do shit like turbocharge across the field at 36 inches, like a turbocharge 36 inches, move 12, ignore 12.
While having a chronometron.
Yeah.
And a disruption field.
Yeah, and like a war sight, so he could zoom across the field turn 1 and then turn 2, get into close combat with something important and be like, you get no saves, now you're gonna die. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Destroyer body melee lords were like, oof.
Yeah, and then Gaze of Flame could addition to that because it's like if you charge them, you get no bonus for charging, and that applied even the Tyranids, demons, and other things that you would think we're immune to such powers, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
And then they gave you a -1 leadership. The weird thing about this, though, is that like later on, there's rules for the Deceiver where the Deceiver could like do something similar and like cause a fear effect, but it only applied to things that weren't fearless, as opposed to Gaze of Flame, which applies to Tyranids and demons and everything. So you're like, so what does the Gaze of Flame actually do? Like, what could they what technology is within this mask that causes such horrible things? Lightning Field.
I don't know. Maybe he just staples a copy of the original Grey Knights Codex to his face.
It's just a what was it? In Halloween, how Michael Myers wore like it's actually like a bleached Captain Kirk mask.
Yeah,
like the Gaze of Flame is actually like it's a bleached Matt Ward rubber mask.
He has the
or no, worse, it's Robin Cruddas. The Tyranids that get into close combat with him are terrified of being nerfed.
He has the prices for models 3 editions from now printed out, and he just sort of tapes it to himself.
It's a copy of 8th edition.
Yeah. It's the invoice for a Forge World shopping spree.
Yeah. Lightning Field. Lightning Field, I don't know if it was exactly worth the points, but depending on how people argued the rules for this, it would be like every wound, even it doesn't say unsaved wound, it was every wound. So even if you wounded him and he saved all those times, you still got a strength 3 hit back. But it was only strength 3 with no armor piercing. So I guess this was good if you were like fighting a horde army where it's like, we're gonna tar pit your Necron Lord, and the Necron Lord is like, oh yeah?
Oh yeah, bitch, what you gonna do?
But then you could also just take a nightmare
send all these fucking conscripts at me. Nuh-uh.
Don't tase me, bro. They all cried as I murdered them with my taser.
Yeah, but then again, if it was an army of conscripts, as you just said, you just take a Nightmare Shroud.
Yeah, just get the fuck out of here, you damn kids! It's just Necron.
Get off my fucking lawn.
Yeah, it's just Necron Lord. It's just like he just puts his hood over and then suddenly goes boo, and then everyone's like, "Oh my god, run!"
Oh no, it's old Necron Lord Henderson.
Yeah, and then Phase Shifter. This is a cool thing I have to note. It's only a 4-up invuln save. All it is. That's all it is. It's a 4-up invuln save. It's an item that lets him phase his body in and out of the corporeal plane. All it is representatively in the game is a 4-up invuln. But the big thing to know about this is an edition where balance was like cared about so much. They were like, 4-up invuln save is so powerful, only one person can have it per army, and it's 30 points.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, one edition later, Space Marines, yeah, Assault Terminators all have a 3-up invuln save on their Storm Shields.
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
And they're not 0-1.
Fucking bullshit. No, they're not. It's fucking bullshit.
But speaking of bullshit, the phylactery was bullshit for 15
Oh, man.
Because it was like Necron Lord, so it's like a 4, it was instead of normal, we'll be back. On a 4-up, it was normal, we'll be back. On a 5, he came back with 2 wounds, and then if you rolled a 6 for his we'll be back, he's just totally fine. He comes back like, what are you gonna do, kill me? He's just... Yeah. This one wasn't 0-1. 4-up invuln save, we can't have more than one Necron Lord with this item. But you can have 2 Necron Lords, both with phylacteries and resurrection orbs. That's totally fine.
Don't worry about it.
The resurrection orb was a ridiculous meme because you could pop it on himself, and it ignored all the stipulations for it within that radius. Yeah. And a thing I want to note about this is that, and nobody will believe me, you can call this bullshit, but when I was a kid, I always imagined that the resurrection orb, like they describe it as like the Necron Lord just gestures with it, and I always imagined that the resurrection orb, when a Necron Lord used it, would he would actually like slam it into the ground and it would create an aura or something that would resurrect everything. And then when Dawn of War Dark Crusade came out, it blew my fucking mind because that was exactly what happened, and I was like, how did they know?
How did they know? Well, they played this game too.
Yeah.
I mean, most of them did.
Oh, old Relic,
Old Relic.
Fucking
but
Relic?
It's...
Relic from Dawn of War 1 versus Relic from Dawn of War 2 versus Relic from Dawn of War 3 is like, it must have been a trip.
Dawn of War 3. That was... Shut up.
Hey, Necrons were in that too.
Shut the fuck up. No.
Solar Pulse. 1 use only, once per army, 20 points for a flashbang of the entire board. Like, just...
Yeah.
Hey guys, is it night fighting? No, it's not.
No.
This item would have been hilarious during certain missions, or if you fought Night Lords or something, you're just like, ha, no.
It's even worse because if it's not night fighting, then it's just... Well, see, the big problem is the big problem with this is the night fighting rules only apply to units fighting at the Necron or firing at the Necron Lord and a unit. It would have been hilarious, but it also would have been a big fucking stupid meme if it had actually been the entire board and just the entire other side can't fire at any of your dudes for like. Well,
like I think that's what they did later on, but the big deal about this was that like basically what you did was if you were playing with night fighting, you have a Necron Lord that took that and attached himself to like a unit of Immortals or something, or like worse, like a unit of you'd have him with a unit of Flayed Ones, and then like or you'd have him with a unit of Immortals, and he would like teleport in through the monolith or show up close to you. And then would be like, all right, we're just gonna unleash hell and like cut your HQ apart or something. And then everybody goes, haha, night fighting rules, you can't see us. And then Necron Lord goes, nope. And like some people, I've seen this happen before, and it broke out into an argument that like lasted for like 3 hours in a game shop because, grognards. There was a Necron player that argued this applied to Tau stealth suits. And the Tau player got really mad. Like just,
get fucked, boy.
Like just, why have black sun filters in our helmets as standards? They can't get flashbang. Nope. Like just, Look, dude, there's sunglasses for a flashbang, but I'm gonna show you the heart of a sun. And then Veil of Darkness. This was 60 points, 1 per army, because you can fucking teleport. Like, just him and then, like, a unit that he could be with of anything. Even heavy destroyers or destroyers. He could just be like, they're out of the tabletop, and then we're just gonna deep strike back in the same turn.
I really like Veil of Darkness, though.
It just the whole in close combat, just goodbye. Oh, I see you've gotten into close combat with the uneducated ranged unit. Well, oh dear, look at the time. Let's just leave combat.
It's flayed 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Or like, and it's what was cool about that was it specifies it's him and up to 1 unit of something else. So what you could do is you could use the Necron Lord to bait an assassination where you attach him to a unit of flayed ones or something, and you have like the Space Marine player or whoever be like, we're gonna go smash this Necron Lord, man. Even if we might lose some guys to his flayed ones, we need to get rid of his Resurrection Orb. And the Necron Lord could be like, all right, I'm gonna leave, but I'm gonna leave these flayed ones behind. So then the Space Marines are stuck fighting the flayed ones.
And then you just fucking deep strike back into like a squad of immortals or something.
Or you deep strike like a behind the flayed ones, so when they die, you just pop the Resurrection Orb. You just pop the Resurrection Orb so the Space Marine player can just get nothing done.
Yeah. You just stand there with your Resurrection Orb and your fucking flayed one Pokemon just laughing at them.
Oh no, there's a unit of Assault Marines flanking around. Good thing I have a Staff of Light. 3 of them are now chicken. Look, fried chicken Space Marines. And you just, like, go back to just... It's just the Necron Lord. He's like, he's got a Resurrection Orb in one hand and popcorn in the other. And he's just watching, like, Assault Terminators kill the same flayed ones 3 rounds in a row before they die from combat resolution because they just can't keep them down. Now we get into the army list. And this artwork is pimp to this day. It was pimp back then. It's pimp now. Just look at how terrifying this man is. His spine is over his head. He's got an old raiment.
I really like as well that like the staff almost looks like an Aquila, but not quite.
Yep.
It has a really interesting aesthetic going here.
Like
his fingers are just very like slender and pointed.
Yeah.
There's very like vague indications of runes on his arm and so on.
And talk about cost effective. 100 points for the stat line.
Yep.
Just strength and toughness 5 with a Staff of Light for 100 points is kind of crazy.
Like this edition. The fact that they're initiative 4 as well
when everybody else is so slow in the army.
Yeah.
Like
the Necron Lords are always like, nope, I'm going first.
Yeah,
and then, I'll go first, and then everyone else follows me.
Well, no, that's even better because it's like it's almost insulting because the only things like he'll go at the same time as Space Marines and still kill his points back. Like,
yep.
If he even dies, which he probably won't.
He probably won't.
And then if he
goes,
what
do you mean Necron Lord dying? What does that happen?
I have a Phylactery and a Resurrection Orb. What are you gonna do? Kill me? Like, because the Resurrection Orb counted for himself. So if they were like, oh well, it was a captain with a power weapon, you don't get armor saves, or I have a Thunderhammer, it's instant death. He's like, no. My Resurrection Orb pops on myself. I can resurrect through that. Oh look, I rolled a 6. I come back with full wounds. Let's start this combat again, shall we? He's just sitting there like, God damn it. And you could have him with a war scythe on a destroyer body and be like, you can't actually, like, statistically, I'm gonna just tie you up the whole game, if not just kill you.
Yeah.
Like
you are going to be fucking stuck here with me when you thought you would get me stuck here with you. Yeah. You try to bog down the Necron Lord. No, he does it to you.
Be even funnier if he had a Chronometron. Like, you don't even use the Chronometron's actual effects. You just have it there for the effect of, we're going to be here forever now.
Yeah.
And, like, I like the little fluff bites here. Like, this is probably my favorite Codex format of just the whole, like, choice, icon, stat line, special rules, options available right there that reference the armory, and then a little fluff in the artwork here. But also,
pariahs on the next page as well.
Yeah, but we're gonna have to talk about those. But like, I like that they reference like this is a thing that makes it kind of softens the blow of the 5th edition retcons, where it was like, yeah, Necron Lords actually did wear like a lot of crumbling vestments and ancient arcane staffs.
Yeah.
Staffs. It
And
should
they
be
were fucking
staves, I
scary.
guess, here, but whatever.
Staves, yeah.
English. But
English, yeah.
Next page we get to elites, and of course, because this is technically a Phil Kelly codex, we have to have this unit that it looks really cool and it's actually a pile of shit. The Pariahs are probably the poster child for really cool, but actually a pile of shit, though.
Yeah.
Because it's just 36 points a model for a dedicated assault unit that is 1 wound, initiative 3, 1 attack. And like a bunch of cool special rules that don't make up for the fact that they're 36 points a model. And they don't have the Necron special rules, so they can't resurrect. They don't actually get back
Honestly, that is the worst part. Like, yes, they're basically just like Necron cyborgs, or we just took a human being and just like grafted necrodermis onto them. But come on, guys.
Yeah.
Like, you really couldn't give them the Necron special rule?
The Pariahs embody the ultimate horror of the Necron threat. Nobody ever uses
why the fuck does the fucking Pariah have fearless, but then it doesn't, like, and then look at the fucking like other, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like Immortals not fearless, Pariahs fearless.
Immortals not fearless, Pariahs fearless. Like, how the fuck does that happen?
Immortals, we have a sense of self-preservation. Pariahs, I ain't cared about shit.
None of these motherfuckers have souls. Alright? Pariahs aren't special in that.
Soulless was kind of cool because you could be
yeah.
like, oh, look, that Space Marine captain who's been around for 400 years, Leadership 7.
Yeah.
Suck my metallic dick. Like, just Leadership 7. What are you going to do? And they shall know no fear? You're going to get run down. But, oh, wait, no, you're not, because they're Initiative 3. And then, like,
they only have 1 wound and 1 attack.
And Psychic Abomination is just such a it's a cool idea, but it's the range on it is so like.
When is a Psyker going to be within 6 inches of this thing? When
they're going to die from war scythe wounds inexplicably, regardless of their heads exploding. Like, Psychic Abomination should have been
something that will ever be useful.
Especially with how Psychers were like really not all that super important for like many editions, including this one until like 6th. Where like Psychic Abomination should have been board wide, where it's just like, if a Psyker draws line of sight with these things, they just run.
Line of sight would have been really strong, though.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly
36 points a model. Like,
yeah. But, I mean, then you look at Immortals, and, like, they're good, but...
Yeah,
I honestly... Okay, I would have said Pariahs for this, give them Necron instead of Fearless, and then make Psychic Abomination line of sight.
Yeah, then they would have just... Or
then I would have said maybe, like, honestly, like 40 points a model.
Initiative 4, and I would agree with you.
Yeah, Initiative 4. Yeah.
Or at least Initiative 4, or at least 2 attack base, because like 1 attack base for a dedicated assault unit is terrible.
Well, but then Immortals only have 1 as well.
Yeah, but Immortals also don't have a close combat weapon, whereas like Pariahs, like, it's just 36 points a model is just an absurd price for 1 attack apiece on a dedicated assault unit. Like,
yeah, I mean, another thing, like Immortals Initiative 2, like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, they're robots. They're rusty robots.
No, but like...
But Flayed ones are Initiative 4 for some fucking reason.
No, Flayed ones are Initiative 4. Those guys are fucking zip... They want your fucking skin real bad. They're gonna run for it.
No, it's just that little comic where it's the Space Marine making fun of the fat Necron. And the Necron pops out his claws. And next panel, he's wearing the Space Marine. But, like... Yeah,
like Immortal should have had like at least 1 more.
The saving grace of Pariahs, I will say this, is that they were fucking awesome in Dark Crusade.
They were really cool.
Shit, they were so ridiculous in Dark Crusade.
And then the other edition, Soulstorm, and then it's Well,
in Soulstorm they were still pretty good, but I mean
they were okay.
In Soulstorm, it was like nobody played Soulstorm. Like let's be fair here. Nobody played Soulstorm without mods.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say I played Soulstorm.
A lot of people play Soulstorms with mods, but nobody plays Soulstorm without mods, really. I mean, it's more balanced than Dark Crusade, so sometimes, like, my friends will still play it occasionally, very rarely, but, like, mostly, like, if you were fighting pariahs in Soulstorm, then that would have been a really long game, because most of the time Necrons would have wiped you out way before they got pariahs out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moving on, Immortals. Well, no, I have to say this one last thing. The weirdest thing I have to say about pariahs was their war scythes came with a built-in Gauss Blaster, so they basically also fill the role of Immortals, but also have this, so it's kind of a weird saving grace to them. But the weirdest thing about it was that if you got a war scythe for a Necron Lord or a Destroyer Lord, it didn't come with a Gauss Blaster. It got rid of your Staff of Light, so you just functionally had no ranged option if you put a War Scythe on a Necron Lord. But the model for the Pariah's War Scythe with the built-in Gauss Blaster was exactly the same as the War Scythe model for the Necron Lord. So there's just no reason why the Necron Lord couldn't also have a Gauss Blaster. And what's even weirder is that the Gauss Blaster built into the War Scythes for the Pariahs and the Necron Lord in the model case are both much smaller than the actual Gauss Blasters on the Immortal models. So you gotta wonder what was going on. Like, it's about the same size as a Gauss Flare. So it's like, how did they miniaturize this much? Like, I almost feel like the Gauss Blaster for this entry was tacked on last minute when they were like, okay, this stat line, this points cost looks good. Wait a second, nobody's gonna use these. We need to sell these pewter models. Oh shit. Because the Pariahs were a pewter kit, and they were like sold in blisters of like one apiece.
Anyways, like, moving on to the Immortals, though.
Nothing to say. Just.
I miss pewter models, and I'm sad whenever they get brought up.
Of course, you miss pewter models. Your sister's a battle player. You're a horrifying abomination that shouldn't exist. Matt Ward declared your kind was purged a long time ago. He's been burning you in effigy for 7 codexes.
And yet we linger on.
But, yeah.
Immortals, you'll notice, first off, 1 less strength and 1 less initiative than Pariah. But 8 less points, and they actually have the Necron rule. Right.
Yeah. And just Gauss Blasters are nasty. In this edition, they were really nasty. Further on, they're still nasty. But, like...
Yeah, but then also they get disruption fields.
Yeah, but they still have to pay
for melee.
Yeah,
they still have to pay for melee.
Yeah,
so it's well.
Whereas Pariahs didn't really
give them, Yeah, exactly. You couldn't just give them, like a melee option.
The one less strength thing is also kind of odd because it's like you could argue it's because of the War Scythe or whatever, but it's like human muscles with grafted on necrodermis servos, strength 5. Pure necrodermis armature, strength 4.
Yeah, it doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like, yeah, you could argue, it's because of the War Scythe, but you could, like, the War Scythe already has, it's already accounted for by just, like, having it, as your weapon. You don't need the additional strength.
Yeah.
And then for the Immortals, it's... okay. Well, we're moving on to Flayed Ones right away. All right, Flayed Ones are zippy.
Yeah,
Flayed Ones are fucking fast.
They're way cheaper than you think they would be for this edition. Like 18 points a model.
Points, and yeah.
They don't even get Disruption Fields base, but
no, they don't need them.
Yeah, but a weird thing about this was they have move through cover, they have infiltration and deep strikes. They could choose to do either.
Yeah.
And they could mess with you, but they didn't actually have any power weapons, which is weird. And later on, they actually made it so their claws are actually power weapons. And that was a weird thing. In Dark Crusade, they treated Flayed Ones as like having a ton of damage in close combat. When in this, they're kind of mediocre. Like 2 attacks, a weapon skill 4, strength 4, but they don't ignore armor saves. It's more like they show up and they scare you.
Like, I would honestly rather have the 1 extra Flayed One than having them have Disruption Fields under the right circumstance. Because, these things are already fucking scary.
Yeah, and Disruption Fields...
deep strike. They have move through cover. They're infiltrators. They're terrifying visage. Like, you don't want to have these things get close to your infantry.
Yeah.
The disruption fields are like, if you want them to do like a secondary role of like anti-armor or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I can only see disruption fields being used if Necrons showed up to like a Cities of Death game. Yeah. Where they're like, we need to pop this bunker. Okay, deep strike behind it and can open it. But at the same time, if you're playing Cities of Death with a Necron player during 3rd and 4th edition, you're probably fucked.
You're fucked.
Because most Cities of Death games, if I recall correctly, were like meat grinders. So like the Necron players ignored the phase out rule, so it'd just be like, okay, we're just gonna keep going. The thing we have to note about this we haven't so far is that all Necrons have a 3-up armor save in this codex. Like they're all fucking power armor. Like no Terminator armor, all power armor though. And then the troops choice, the only troops choice they have. And this is a scary goddamn image they had for it. Like, I love this artwork.
Oh, this is like, it has like an actual fucking skull. It's not just like the flat face or anything.
Yeah, like with his ridiculous cheekbones.
Yeah.
It's got the pupils with the little like eyes. It's like, obviously it's green. It's probably green fire, and you're just like, oh god.
This is a fucking Terminator.
Yep. And then 18 points a model as well. And
yeah.
You know what? Fuck it. Like, just the whole...
Disruption fields for cheaper, though. Cheaper than Flayed ones.
Because, on Flayed ones, it's a totally new role, so it's a balancing act. Whereas on Warriors, it's like, Warriors aren't going to be getting into combat. They only walk. They have no transport option other than the Monolith, which is kind of unorthodox. And they have a ranged weapon, at least. One of the best ranged... Like, arguably the best ranged weapon in the game, like... tied with the pulse rifle for this edition and many editions afterward. Because while it had the profile of a bolter, if it hit you on a 6, it always wounded you regardless, and it could glance vehicles on a 6. Regardless.
The reserves rule for the Warriors is really weird. I want to...
Well, because the Monolith was technically a transport, but the way it transported stuff was it didn't actually carry anything inside of it. It brought stuff from reserve out through its portal via deep strike without scatter. So it was very unorthodox.
Yeah, but it's... What I was going to say is weirder about it is they may begin the game in reserve whether or not reserve is actually in use. So in order for this to be the most beneficial rule possible, right? To actually have the advantage of, well, I have reserves and you don't. When you're playing against someone, you need to have them voluntarily say, okay, yeah, we're not going to use reserves as our special rule. But then you get it anyways for your Warriors, just because. Rather than just saying, okay, well, if you're going to play Warriors, which have reserves as a thing, I also want to have reserves.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's weirdly worded, but it's also kind of just there so that people couldn't rules lawyer you out of having your Monolith use its main function as a transport.
Yeah. It's just like, if people are aware that this exists, then it's hard for like them playing against a Necron player to be like, oh, well, it's hard to argue them into not wanting to also take reserves.
Yep.
So it like, I understand the reasoning behind it. I just think that the rule could have phrased a different way or done slightly differently. That would have
last thing I want to note about this, like at least on my end, is that I love the little lore heats they have here. It's just spine-chilling sight as bullets and last blast bounce harmlessly from metallic limbs, and then the Gauss flare just ripping everything to nothing. And then this little like excerpt from some Martian lore where they're just like, robots is scary. Like, just
robots are really scary, guys.
We're awakening of these ancient beings. Everything is screwed. Lovecraft was right. Oh no.
I whipped out my cyber dick and I slapped it on the Necron Lord's face, and then he woke up and Gauss flayed it off him.
Yep. Because this is just 3rd edition Adeptus Mechanicus, standard Magus Explorator operating procedure, Cyberdong everything.
You just mark it as your property.
Yep.
It's fine.
Fast attack. Now this fast attack section is probably like actually like ironically enough the bread and butter of Necrons, who are like they're slow, but they're not slow.
But they're not slow enough.
Well, like the Necron army is supposed to be slow.
I think I said that wrong. They're supposed to be slow, but really they aren't.
Yeah, because the Necron army is supposed to be slow, but like the scariest options they have aside from like the Monolith and Satan is actually in the fast attack section. We will discover here.
Yeah.
So Wraiths, 41 points a model, but strength 6, initiative 6.
3 attacks.
And their 3-up save is invulnerable because phase shifter. They had a 3-up invuln in 3rd edition. That's fucking terrifying. Like
Wraiths are
some shit.
They are a thing. And they move like jet bikes.
But ignore all terrain because they pass through it.
Fuck you.
Just shadow cat their way through everything. Like
they are just super jet bikes, and they don't give a fuck about anything you put in there. They are going to get right up to you in your fucking face, and they're going to rip your face off.
And they're going to stab you to death.
Like the only thing that would have made them worse would have been if they just had disruption fields.
Yeah. They can't
take they already have these strength 6,
but they're already strength 6, so it's just like, most vehicles they're probably going to can open anyway. If you put 3 Wraiths on them, like 9 attacks at strength 6, that's going to get at least 1 glance on most vehicles.
Yeah.
You couldn't can open
if they had disruption fields, that would
it'd be even worse. Well, like they can't can open a Land Raider, but the thing is the only reason why they can't is because Land Raider's AV-14 on all sides. This edition, if you got into close combat with a vehicle, unless you would hit the facing that you were on, and like the Wraith could always just be like, I'm gonna float around to the back armor. Oh, look at that! It's nice and juicy.
Yeah, but Land Raiders were like, no, we're
AV-14 on all sides. Just because. That's what we do. Thicker armor on my power plant than a Baneblade has on its side. Just because. Dumb tank.
Fucking Space Marine vehicles, though.
Yep. And just Wraiths are just terrifying in general. They really have like a really scary aesthetic of just like. And then this Necron warrior that's actually like.
Look at that fucking art. Look at that art.
Just. Then, like, even better, that is, I think that's based on that gun. That's a Dark Reaper. That is a Dark Reaper being like, oh no! Like, just.
Yeah.
Like, Dark Reaper, my entire warrior path is being cool and killing stuff and praying for death. I'm a soldier of Cain, god of murder. And, oh my god, it's a Wraith!
Oh god, no.
Yeah.
Necrons. I wanted to die to something also alive, not this fucking thing.
Yep. And then Destroyers. I like this art on the Destroyer too, where the Destroyer, he's got one arm and he's using it to hold a skull, just cuz. And just, yep. I'm holding a skull.
Yeah, another... Destroyers, though. Like, just like Immortals, and just like Warriors, Initiative 2.
But they're a jet bike.
They're jet bikes with Initiative 2. It's so fucking weird.
But you're not going to get in close combat with them anyway because
I know you're not, but it's weird, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's just it's weird.
I understand why, but
they're like just they're old cold machines. They're obviously slow because stereotypes.
Yeah, even though like the whole point of machines is honestly that they're faster than you allow them.
Yeah. And now we get to the real shenanigans. Now, believe it or not, the most optimal way to run a Necron army was like minimal warriors. Was like not minimal warriors, but a bunch of warriors and like a Necron Lord with a Res Orb that would just get screened by max scarabs, like just 30 swarms of scarabs filling your entire like all your fast attack choices because scarabs are bullshit. Like,
yep, they actually have fearless.
Yes. Because they're just tiny robots made in nanomachines. They're all weapon skill 2.
Yeah.
But they're 3 attacks a base. They have 3 wounds a base. They're fearless. They can deep strike. They're swarms.
So, they only have a 5+ save.
Yeah.
But they're swarms.
So they have multiple wounds. So it's like you would have to just waste tons of ordnance on them for 12-point models to get rid of them. and they were
they have
scary
small target.
because they moved as jet bikes. They moved as jet bikes, but because they're swarms, they ignored difficult terrain, which is the main problem with jet bikes. Was they could move really fast, but if you ran in difficult terrain, they could just crash into a tree and die, like Endor style. Whereas the Scarabs are like, nope, because they're just gonna fly over it like a swarm, and like they just.
And also, they get +1 to cover saves.
Yeah. So what you would do to run Scarabs is like you would just give them, you'd give them disruption fields, and it would make them 16 points of base, which but they're just really fast. So you just fly this just wave of Scarabs over, like just over the board and just eat all the vehicles on it.
Yeah, or what you do is you fly into cover halfway across the board, and then the next turn you fly the rest of the way across the board. Because you have small target, and that is actually pretty good, especially when you could just ignore difficult terrain to get wherever the fuck you want.
What was fucked up was like when this started off, small target was like it's decent. It got better because remember like jet bikes. So like jet bikes and bikes in general, when they turbocharge, jet bikes could turbocharge 36 inches across the battlefield. I believe.
Yeah.
Or maybe they could turbocharge 24, and then Eldar jet bikes could turbocharge 36.
They could do 24, and then it was the Dark Eldar jet bikes could do 36.
Yeah, but like they could go really far, really fast. But the main thing was if they ran into cover, they would like destroy. But they don't have that problem. And then on top of that, they the thing was when you turbocharge, your armor save became an invulnerable save to represent you being hard to hit. 5th edition, when this codex was still in use, but right before the Necron Codex came out, they actually got better because in 5th edition they made it so that turbocharging was a cover save, not an invulnerable save.
Ooh,
which made it less bullshit for most people, because a 3-up invul and like turbocharging Scarabs. Marine bikers was stupid. But for Scarabs, it's like, wait, you're saying we can just turbocharge and now we all have 4-up invulns? And you're just sitting there watching like everybody except Imperial Guard players go, we can't stop them. The only people that were like, I have a thing for this, were Imperial Guard players sitting there with like mortars and tons of artillery, being like, thank God I brought all of these piece of shit weapon options no one liked.
Finally an enemy that frag grenades are actually useful today.
Yeah, like mortars are such a sad weapon option. They're like so unrealistically bad. Like
it's like, rather than being like fucking rape machines, it's just
like, strength 4, AP 5. It can miss really easily because we suck. Her-da-dur-da-dur.
Yeah, because trigonometry isn't a thing. They just fucking eyeball what they're shooting at.
Yeah. Anyway, but
what the fuck is an azimuth, sir?
Yeah, like, so you could argue that destroyers and wraiths to a certain extent were overcosted, but every single option for fast attack for this edition and onward was scary. And the Necrons, like, this codex at the time was like really scary because its point costed like an elite army, but it could be very like low model heavy, so you could just kill like a few warrior squads and make sure they're dead, and then they'd cause you to phase out and everything. But mostly, like, what made people not see wraiths and destroyers and scarab, or you would see scarab swarms, obviously, but wraiths and destroyers on the board was just, as the rules changed, more armies got more effective at destroying Necrons permanently with like high strength weapons, like just Space Marine plasma spam or Guard plasma spam or something. And that's not really this codex's fault. It was just the Necron players are just a relatively small fan base in general anyway. That's why a lot of people didn't see them. I only ever ran into like 3 Necron players and didn't play that many games with them before 5th edition. And I don't know, you've ran into any, really.
I think I've run into like 2. But, well, the Necrons were known to be like a money sink in terms of like models and everything.
Yeah. Even though, like, what was weird about this army was, even though it was a 3rd edition army, a lot of the range was plastic. Like, the destroyers were plastic, the warriors were plastic, the immortals were plastic. Like, not that much of their range was pewter, which, like, pewter at the time of 3rd edition and 4th edition was actually the heaviest money sink. Like, remember, like, the 3rd edition, 4th edition obliterators were, like, just blister packs? Like, obliterators were $22 a model.
Yeah, it was a interesting time.
Oh wait, what am I talking about? You play Sisters of Battle. Everything was pewter. You were just
Yeah.
sitting there waiting for me to fucking realize that like you're just upset with me for bringing that up. I'm sorry.
all those pewter models that I never use anymore, and they just sit gathering dust.
Hey
I mean,
man, you brought your.
I could get them out and play with them with the new Codex. So wait, no, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, 8th edition is still bad. Hey, you remember when
I
Sisters were.
don't want to have Celestine be a mandatory pick every fucking game I
Hey,
play.
did you know that Celestine made Sisters of Battle viable again for 3 months before 7th
Shut the
edition
fuck
ended?
up. God damn it.
You know how she made him viable by breaking the game? Much like Necron, she could resurrect her own troops.
Fucking Celestine.
She's a fine cast model.
Shut the fuck up.
I'm just saying things
God.
to hurt him at this point. Like, I'm a bad person.
Stop.
Oh, that was nice. So, let's move on to the fun section. The funnest section in every codex. Heavy support.
Heavy support. Oh.
Tomb spiders. Tomb spiders were fucky.
Hover, though.
Yeah, well, no, so, first things first. Really low weapon and ballistic skill, but they're only 55 points a model for strength and toughness 6. Even though they're only 2 wounds apiece. You could take one. Second thing, you could take up to 3 of them in a single choice, but they were all independent units. So you could potentially have 9 tomb spiders on the board fucking around. But it would be a heavy point sink. However, they could take particle projectors that just did the same thing as a Staff of Light. Reduce their attacks.
But it reduces their numbers of attacks to 2, though, which is like,
Yeah, you want those extra attacks if you're planning on getting them in close combat. However, this unit was not really a close combat unit. Like, obviously it is, because it's like, oh, well, monstrous creature, it hovers. But really what it was supposed to do, what it's really supposed to do is sit there behind Necron warrior units menacingly and letting them get back up easier because of the Tomb Spider rule. Or they could, like...
the fucking artificer shit.
And then, or they could just be like, and free Scarab Swarms.
Yeah.
Free Scarab Swarms.
Scarabs forever.
Free. It's free real estate.
Yeah, just park it in cover and it just shits out Scarabs.
Ironically enough, it's free real estate is what every Magos Explorator said when they landed on what they found out to be a tomb world and later died.
Mm-hmm.
Verbatim, I promise.
Some say that the vocal cords of those Magnos Explorators were integrated into the tomb spiders of this planet to echo their dying screams of, oh no, it's not free real estate after all.
Just imagine a tomb spider, like, in the background, you're, like, wandering through this desert, like, wonder why this planet's got a perfectly healthy atmosphere but no vegetation. I wonder why no one's living here. It's free real estate. What? It's free real estate.
For you, Explorator. Free real estate for you.
Free real estate. And then heavy destroyers, which they had to include. I really like the design on heavy destroyers. I know it's like, oh, it's just a shittier las cannon, but with the Gauss rule, which is kind of pointless because it's a las
it's
cannon.
a fucking gun that is his spine.
But no, I just love the main thing I loved about heavy destroyers was just this cool, like, fucking the targeting matrix they had. And, like, how their head design is different to have more targeting equipment for them. Even though it doesn't have any effect on the game at all. However,
no, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, they're still only PS4.
However, these heavy destroyers were really weird because they were 65 points a model, so it was arguably, like, hard to take them. But they could move and fire as jet bikes, so you could have an anti-tank unit that just repositions constantly.
Yeah, it's only 2 initiative. Yeah, but still, they do have that 3-up, and they have 5 toughness, which is terrible.
And I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but destroyers were a partial pewter model thing. Like, I think they were similar to broadsides in 3rd edition, where, like, they were based on the destroyer plastic kit, but the actual, like, the different head and the targeting thing and the actual like heavy Gauss cannon were pewter pieces that you had to put on from a blister kit pack, or they came with the box. They were a little box set, I think. There was like a single heavy destroyer box set. It was like $20 or something like that.
I'm trying to remember. I think I know for a fact at least that the Gauss cannon they had was not pewter.
I'm probably remembering wrong. I do remember though.
I think you might be right, but I'm not.
A weird thing was that destroyer lords were a thing in this book, obviously, but every single one of them was a conversion job because the destroyers were a plastic kit, and the Necron lord was a pewter model, was a blister. So you needed to convert, like you needed to find some way to like identify a destroyer as a Necron lord, like convert his arm to have a staff of light or a war scythe instead of having the Gauss cannon. Unless did they make a destroyer? I might be misremembering as well if they made a destroyer kit. I remember seeing a lot of the stuff in my shop, but I never played Necrons myself. I played against them, but that was like way later on in my career, quote unquote, or my time actually playing 40K, for lack of a better term.
Then the next page, though. The next page.
Oh yeah, here we fucking go.
Here we go. It's the monolith.
It's got an entire page of rules.
It's the fucking monolith.
You don't even have to read. You don't have to read what these are. You just see all these special rules, and you're like, "Oh no, this is gonna be bad." Like,
it's only 235 points, and it's the monolith.
You can't destroy it. You can't kill it. All it will do is destroy you. Like,
it is a very slow skimmer.
I have
14 armor on every side.
I have said before that from a realism perspective, the Tau Hammerhead gunship is the best tank in the game. But that's only because I don't consider the monolith a tank. I consider the monolith a fucking mobile building / war crime. This thing has always been insane. Like, just 235 points for armor 14 on all sides and ballistic skill 4. It's a tank that's also a skimmer, but it's a skimmer with armor 14. In this edition, it meant like it moves 6 inches forward. All right, you can't shoot it. Yep. It's 6 up to hit. Oh, you hit it. Yep. Congratulations. Now you need a fucking 6 to pen.
Good luck.
Good luck. You needed absurd luck to kill this thing. And its first special rule was specifically fuck anti-armor weapons. The rule, like just
yeah. The only thing that's exempted is ordnance weapons. Otherwise, eat a dick.
And the only reason why was because ordnance weapons are like it's an orbital laser or like artillery that's hitting you on all sides at once.
Yeah,
like
unless you brought fucking basilisks, then just fuck off.
Basilisks or like a chapter master who wastes his one-a-game lance strike on the monolith. Like just, we have to kill that thing. Like, yeah, the monolith, we destroy that and it's all over. Charge.
Yeah.
Hey, these three space marines with crack grenades are going to destroy that monolith in close combat, and basically we're fucking stupid. Just
he uses his fucking orbital strike. He rolls 2 1s.
Yeah, I love this. Like, you can't count its armor value as less. Bright lances and blasters, go fuck yourself. You can't get additional armor penetration. Monsters, creatures, melta weapons, and chain fists. No. Like, just...
No. Just
do you hear that? It's as though 1,000 Sisters of Battles and Salamander players cried out and then were suddenly silent. That's not even a dig against you for having that army. It's just because... It's just... Look at all these melta guns that don't work.
Look at all my melta guns that... Oh, wait, these are just fucking... las pistols now.
Oh, strength 8, you can pen on a 6. Yeah, if I can hit it on a 6 first. You motherfuckers. You can charge him with your melta bombs. No 2d6 for armor pen. God damn it.
God damn it.
Then a ponderous rule where it was just like, it's a skimmer, but it won't crash. Because fuck you.
It can't crash, but it's slow though.
It's slow. It can remain stationary, so you could just have it sit there and be like, yes.
Just float to the middle of the map.
Sir, what is it doing? It's just sitting there. Menacingly.
it's just sitting there, and every so often a Necron warrior just pops out of the front.
This opens a portal. Ah! And it could deep strike.
It could deep strike, and it could deep strike, and then pop out more Necron warriors wherever the fuck you want.
Yeah, and no, that's the best thing. Because of its mass, it could deep strike, and instead of like if it struck next to you, it was like, oh no, it's destroyed. It's like, no, it's not. So you could just be like, you could just do whatever you wanted with the deep strike for it. Just like imagine doing this in third edition to people, where you're just like, all right, turn 3, I rolled a 4, okay. I'm deep striking my monolith on your command squad. You're doing what now? And this was a big deal too. Gauss flux arc projectors. Just the whole it's like, oh look, D6 shots at every enemy unit with a model within 12 inches of the monolith.
Yep.
And like if you got weapon destroyed on it, all it did was reduce the number of shots by 1.
By 1.
It doesn't actually destroy the weapon. It's just,
no.
Oh no. I rolled a 6. I'm only gonna hit your guard squad next to me for 5.
Oh.
And then
also the power matrix, of course, which is
hilarious.
Kind of weird, but like yeah, it has like a lot of stuff.
I dig it honestly because it couldn't be disabled with a weapon destroyed, so it's just like, haha, fuck you. And it could be used,
even if it's shaken or stunned, nope.
And if it moves, because the particle whip was an ordnance weapon, so that meant like that meant that like you could move this thing 6 inches, or like technically as a skimmer, you could move it 12 inches and then be like, all right, particle whipping you, and then just like fucking nuke something.
Yeah.
It was strength 9 AP 3 ordnance blast. So it's like it's ordnance, so it's just trashing stuff. But it was AP 1 if you were under the hole, so a direct hit was just like, and it's gone. And then
just
like
fucking
if it
hovers over you.
Yeah, and if you didn't want to use the particle whip, it could just be like, okay, I'm gonna take this unit that's either in reserve or this unit that's already on the board, and I'm just gonna teleport it somewhere else. Like, just hey, goodbye. And then they just come back out the portal.
The portal rule, which was
yeah, the dark portal. It's just fucking. It just all in all, probably undercosted for this edition.
No, but it's they can just phase out.
Yeah.
Just an entire unit just phase out and just come back out of the fucking monolith portal.
Yeah, just redeploy your army.
Redeploy. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, 1 unit at a time. This isn't even like, oh,
this is what I'm talking about when I said this book just broke the rules of the game. You're just like, everybody else followed the core rulebook, and the Necrons were like, what the fuck's a movement phase?
Okay.
Like,
yeah, all my warriors start on this side of the board. You get like halfway over here. I deep strike my monolith over to the other side of the board. And now all my units are going to, 1 by 1 each turn, go to the other side of the board instead.
Yeah. You couple that
What are you going to do?
And you couple that with a Necron lore with a Veil of Darkness where he's just like, and then I'm going to redeploy as well.
Yeah.
You just fucking play musical chairs with the entire enemy battlefield, and you're just like, what are you going to do? Stop me? I can bend space and time.
I have mastered arcane sciences you can't even begin to comprehend.
And it's just such a fucking cool looking model too. Just in the artwork, the actual model itself, like it's just big pimping. And just imagine it though, for good. 3rd edition, 235 points to do this. You could bring this to a 500-point game.
Yeah,
just take a giant shit all over some kid. Just be like, I am a bad person. Here, fight the Pyramid of Giza. Like, oh wait, it's gonna fight back.
Like you could bring 2 of these to a 500. You wouldn't be able to bring anything else.
You can't play a 500-point game with 2 of these in 3rd edition though. There wasn't.
Like, you can't.
Yeah, because you'd still have to follow the Force Org chart, so you'd need to spend.
Oh shit, you're right.
Damn. This is, what do you think this is? 7th edition? This is
yeah, you're right.
Here's my Unbound army.
You're
it's 2 monoliths and 500 points. It's 2 monoliths and a Necron lord with a middle finger. Just like...
Necron lord with no fucking gear. He just stands there and laughs at you.
Yeah, I came here to laugh at you. No, he has a Staff of Light as standard. He walks out the portal of 1, or the other each other turn and shoots one unit.
he jumps out the portal, zaps
and
you, goes
tases,
back
it just tases a Space Marine captain who's sitting there, like, praying to God. Like, just, why? Two particle whips turn 1. It's just horrible.
I wish. I wish, but okay.
But in 7th edition, they had to use the 5th edition codex, where like the monolith wasn't as much of a meme.
Yeah.
Sad. Yeah.
Still, like, yeah, let's just take this and, like, you know, take some scarabs and some warriors, and yeah, you're good. You're good, bro.
Necron Lord with a resurrection orb for the sake of trolling. You don't even take the resurrection orb because it's a good option. You take it because you like pissing off your opponent. Just. And then
See, the only thing that makes me sad though is you can redeploy, you know, like destroyers and whatever, and like heavy destroyers, but you can't do it with tomb spiders.
Yeah, and you can't redeploy pariahs or scarabs.
No, none of the fun ones. Only the basic bitch ones that actually.
If you could redeploy the Satan using that would be disgusting.
Oh, that would be fucking that would be gross, dude. No way.
You see my Deceiver? He's actually over here. Oh wait, he's also over here. But I mean, that's also like in character for Deceiver, though. I like the fact. I want to point that out that in Soulstorm, when they added the Deceiver, the fact that his like grand illusion rule, like that we will discuss in a moment, was represented by him making an illusionary copy of your monolith, even if you didn't have one out, and your opponent and it would attack your morale. So your opponent's just like, good. What is that?
What the fuck is going on?
But it was a late game unit, so you probably would have had your monolith out too, so you could have 2 monoliths attacking him, and your opponent's sitting there like, all right, one of these is fake, and the other one is going to kill me. Like,
one of them attacks your soul, the other one attacks your body, and also your soul.
Yep. A summary page, very succinct, because the
Nightbringer, the Deceiver.
Yeah, that they're on there before they even got their rule entry, because they're technically special characters. This artwork that's iconic now of just this guardsman, only his pants are left.
Only his pants.
And his pants are shooting light out of the hole.
His brass balls protected him.
Yeah, he didn't shit himself, though. That's how we know this is a guardsman.
Yeah.
Like, just this, like, watercolor piece, almost. I dig it.
He's got his arm halfway up to flipping them off, but he wasn't quite fast enough.
Also, this is the last time I'm going to poke at you, but...
Actually, no, hold on. What's that? If you look at it a little bit, it almost looks like he's fucking dabbing.
Yeah, almost. Necron's... For some reason, Necron artwork, or artwork to do with Necron, has a history of dabs.
Yeah. It's, I wonder why.
Yeah. But, this is the last time I'm going to poke you. This little lore snippet here is a reference to Sanctuary 101. One of the first open battles the Imperium had with the Necrons, and it was the sisters... It was our Order of Our Martyred Lady sanctuary that got fucking annihilated by a Necron tomb world.
Yeah. It's just a bunch of nuns hanging out with their guns, and then skeletons show up and they're spooky.
And killed every single one of them.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they mentioned there were bodies left over and the Inquisition took them and wouldn't let them have them back. They're like, no, we need to find out why these aren't gone. They call them a Necron tier.
It turns out they're actually fucking, like, flayed ones just wearing skin suits, pretending to be bodies.
They snuck in. I mean, like,
They have Infiltrator!
Yeah,
they have Infiltrator.
This is how they infiltrate. They use the skins to pretend that they're you, because for some reason people think, like, naked bleeding men that look like they're friends without their armor on is like, yeah, I could let them within 18 inches of the wire. Oh god, wait.
Yeah.
That's some scary shit to think about when, like, Alpha Legion all had Infiltrate too. Where, like, you could have an entire army of Chaos Space Marines that showed up right next to you. But then, like, flayed ones infiltrating the Alpha Legion, like, how do they manage that one?
No, it's even worse. How the fuck does the Alpha Legion infiltrate the Necrons?
They just do, alright? Shut up.
They just do.
They're probably working for the Deceiver, and, like, it's a different fucking brand of Necrons that work for the Nightbringer.
Oh, I see how it is.
Because, like, even in this canon, the Deceiver was like, hey, fuck you guys. because the Deceiver just made everybody hate each other. But let's talk about that. All right, this artwork that's iconic now too of like the Nightbringer.
Everyone knows that. Although, ironically, like the upper half of the page, people know more than the lower half.
Yeah, because it's just like it's a ringer, but like the lower half, it provides so much fucking context that's so great.
Yeah.
Where it's just, I love this, like the flying scarabs, or these are, I guess I don't know if these are scarabs or they're tomb spiders because they look like the size of tomb spiders.
Those are the upper. Okay, the one that is like big and to the middle left is a tomb spider. The other ones are all scarabs.
Yep, and then like those are pariahs. And that's like an astropath, I think. That's an astropath or some kind of psychic.
That's an astropath about to get fucked up by a pariah.
He doesn't even know that the pariah's about to hit him. He's just having a migraine right now, being like, oh my god, it's horrible.
It's horrible. There's a second pariah too, right there behind the first one.
I mean, they're a squad. And then, like, this is, like, obviously, like, some tomb city or something. There's Necron warriors in stasis.
The other two Necrons.
These are, like, ship crewmen.
Right there.
Yeah, this was a Paul Dayton piece, and it's fucking great.
It's really good. Like, I like helmet. The two... What I don't get is, like, the skull... lining underneath the thing, like it's like you see right that like all along that flat, that looks more like an Imperium thing. Like that doesn't look like something.
Yeah, it does. I think almost that he started drawing. I think this is like he might have like maybe this was a piece that he started drawing for like Tomb Kings, and then was like, wait, no, I have a better idea.
What if they were space?
What
robots?
If there were space shit in here? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I like this. This is like kind of looks like a flayed one from like the outline of like the scraps, and there's just this like voidsman with a bolt pistol. Like, oh my god! Like very like looking like Alien 1, like just straight out of Alien 1.
Voidsmen have a hard job.
And this guy here, who looks like almost looks like he's saying like, Timmy, what are you freaking out about? And there's like a flayed one's claws through his chest, and like the flayed one's got his hand over his head like he's pulling him back off screen.
He just looks surprised more than anything. He looks like he was about to say something.
He can't because there's suddenly there was a disruption field in my lungs and I lost the ability to speak.
Whoops.
Meanwhile, Astropath Fagus over here is just having a conniption.
He looks like he's trying to make some kind of decision. I'm not sure what.
He's 3 feet away from a pariah. That dude's brain is melting out of his ears. Like,
should I shit myself or should I piss myself first? What would the Emperor do?
I don't know, Warscythe. The beginning of time. This is where the real lore gets in. Another cool like splash
real
piece.
Lore.
Of like a fucking
the birth of
coming
the
out of the
Star
ground.
Gods.
War in the Heaven, Rise of the Old Ones, Necron Tier. I imagine this coming out must have been like a revelation book for 40k fans that only knew stuff about like Space Marines at the time, where they're just like, wait a second, what?
The War in Heaven.
Or even worse, like Eldar players who are like, we were top dogs, or oh my god.
Oh my god, no.
Yep. And then this iconic piece of just Necron Warrior just being like, I gotta kill somebody today, don't I?
Yeah, like it's weird because it's not consistent how long their faces are, like how thin they are. It kind of varies between the different depictions of them in this edition, which I like.
I kind of like that, and I hope we never get an artist depiction of what they looked like when they had flesh, because I don't want to imagine.
No, it's no, thank you. I don't like how standardized it actually got later, because I feel like, again, like I said earlier, I feel like modern Games Workshop, they kind of take away the freedom of the artists for the sake of just having like a coherent and
it's because the majority of
very standard aesthetic for
the majority of the creative direction are black library writers and people like Phil Kelly, who have been yes men to their marketing department and like the corporate like money making guys that don't actually care about the story, while at the same time they're sitting there jerking off their fan fiction. That's why people like Aaron Dembski Bowden, who started off as a fan of 40k and was a guy who poked fun at the fact that there was no real justification for why Chaos Space Marines didn't have land speeders or all this other, or like variant Predator tanks or all the other stuff that they had during the Heresy, even though they should still have more war gear left than the Space Marine chapters do. And now he's the dude who works for GW and Black Library at the same time, writing fluff for modern Chaos Marines that is retroactive justifications for why they don't have that stuff, other than just flat out saying, because GW doesn't want Chaos Marine players to get too many options. But, this little snippet on the Outsider, Necron Ascendancy, I like it all. I like it.
Visions of the Sleeping God is
very
really
first person is Zarafiston, so it's immediately Black Legion.
Yeah.
They're probably using a Space Wolf's guts to fucking tell the future here. What is on Maz? Great chamber of basalt. Around it, a towering machines of antiqued silver stretched endlessly upward. Set in the floor was a vast sarcophagus of adamantium and gold. From each of the machines, in turn, a flickering beam of unimaginable energy flowed in a glittering arc to the sarcophagus. Outside the summoning chamber, Abaddon's Black Legion bodyguards heard an unfamiliar sound, the harsh, grating laughter of the despoiler.
Abaddon knows what's up.
I like that Abaddon knows that the dragon's asleep on Mars and the Mechanicus is just totally retarded. We're using it as a power source.
Yeah, he's just like, okay, so as soon as I invade the Sol system, I'm going to Mars first.
Are we going to invade Mars? No, we're going to bomb it until it's broken open, then we're going
to... we're gonna blow open the surface of Mars and then run away really quick.
Yeah.
It's like ding dong ditching a fucking nuclear warhead on someone's front door.
Yeah. On the front door of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
The fucking enslaver plague, the entombing. And then...
Yeah, it talks about the Jokero as well.
Yeah, the Jokero. This sketch of the Deceiver, the initial sketch where he, kind of almost looks like Eldar-like. 0-1
smug anime boy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alright, these special rules, to this day, are still kind of terrifying, but in this edition must have been, shenanigans for people that read this for the first time.
Monstrous creature, obviously. Immune to natural law.
No. Monstrous creature, you're missing the best part of it. In addition, a Satan can reshape its necrodermis, see below, at will to form blades and spikes. Its close combat attacks therefore ignore invulnerable saving throws. So not only did it ignore armor and got 2d6 for armor pen, they ignored invulnerable saving throws because they just reshape their body inside your power fields or whatever and stab you again.
Yep.
Immune to natural law. They can do way more with this than other than just, we ignore terrain. They can float through terrain and stuff. I would have liked it if they were just we ignore consolidation or
but also it's subtle, but it's really good. They can ignore terrain, but when they attack you behind cover, they count as having frag grenades, so they strike simultaneously.
Yeah,
and that's just kind of no, that's really good for what these are.
Yeah, especially because they could have been plasma grenades. But remember the plasma grenades versus frag grenades debate is always dumb because the plasma grenades, it's they ignore cover as opposed to making you also initiative 10 in these editions. But the reason why is because plasma grenades are almost always on Eldar, which usually have higher initiative than you or think they will have higher initiative than you. Eldar using plasma grenades against Tyranids has always been a hilarious fucking thing to watch. Because they're haha, we're initiative 5 or we're in initiative 6 at best. We're gonna go first if we ignore terrain. Oh wait, that's a Broodlord. He's initiative 8. I'm about to be stabbed to death because I'm an idiot now, aren't I?
And then Necrodermis, of course.
Necrodermis is so cool
invulnerability for plus.
In their natural state, Satan are immense energy beings. When they walk among mortals, though, they are clad in necrodermis, which binds their essence. I love that because that justifies why they have a profile in-game that can be killed by enough las cannons.
Yeah, you're not destroying the Satan.
You're
You
just
are
blowing,
dispersing its essence, so it just leaves. Like it's like whatever. Fuck
and
you,
then
dude,
it's
I'm
also
going
like
home.
not only 4-up invuln, but like, oh yeah, if you kill me in close combat, I'm gonna kill you too. Like just
Yeah.
everybody gets six strengths hit, everything within D6 inches. So you could just like just yes, tar pit the Satan, you idiot. Do it. Do it.
Do it. Do it though.
Wraith Cannon can't do shit. Like I like that the Wraith Cannon because like warp is poisonous to them, so they do take a single wound, but it doesn't instant kill them. You don't get to cheat them out of it with Wraith Cannons. Drain life is awesome too. Because they could like because
The thing, it does specify war gear though.
Yeah.
So there were exceptions.
Like
but
other Necrons.
It's still, yeah.
Well, I mean, that makes sense for Necrons because they don't have life.
They don't have life to drain.
Yeah, it's just coming back as a robot shit.
No. But otherwise, it's really good.
Yeah. And then Manifestation, it's a living god. The sheer power. If they try to assault it, they have to make a leadership test. Even Tyranids and demons had to make a leadership test.
Yeah, they're like, oh my god, it's that thing. If it's a fucking demon and it sees like a Satan, all right, it knows. It knows what this is. It remembers the old days. It does not want any of that.
Ah, shit. Here we go again. Above all others. And then the Fearless, because fuck you, they're fearless.
Yeah.
And then all the cool lore on them. Of the Satan at
from
large in the
ancient
universe,
times.
two are known. The Nightbringer and the Deceiver. Yep. Metallic-skinned apparitions floating above the battlefield. Phantom, ethereal winds howl at their vestments, wreathing them in ghostly fires that emanate from deep within their bodies. Nightbringers, I think this is where they reference it. A Grim Reaper from the dawn of time. It carries a stylized scythe as a potent symbol of its power.
They don't talk about the other part, I guess, until maybe later.
Or in a novel. It's got to
Yeah.
be somewhere. I'll source it if we do, because this is just the overview. We can, if we want to look into more on them. And then I like the Deceiver is just like got a million names. And they reference these other alien races that we'll never hear about. Even though apparently the Jokero had a pantheon and the Deceiver was on it for a while.
How the fuck did the Jokero have anything? They're just they're autistic fucking chimp like orangutan motherfuckers.
Yeah, but in this edition, the Jokero are also like not fully fleshed out. Later on was when they made it. We're like, oh yeah, the Jokero aren't really like self-aware; they're just animals.
I mean, but even that's kind of dubious.
And that was when, like, suddenly for some reason you'd have Inquisitor Codiaz show up with like his barrel of monkeys.
Fuck off.
Grey Knights, Codex Grey Knights. Gunshot noises.
Fucking Inquisitors.
The Satan wield the primal energies of creation. Their power is such that they can defy natural laws and alter the fabric of reality itself. Even if a Satan is destroyed in battle, its essence will reform in a Necron tomb and return to wreak its vengeance later. Haha, you can't kill me.
That fucking Deceiver, though, like, seriously, that is just a fucking manga villain. Yeah. That is the smug anime villain of, like, the...
My favorite image of the Deceiver is still when they made when they did the recast of him in resin. Because it's just the old Deceiver box set, but instead of pewter, it's in resin. But they had to advertise it in being resin, so it's just the Deceiver. It's the box where it's the Deceiver, and he's got his smile at you, and it just says Citadel Finecast. And it's like a totally normal box, but it's so subtly funny when he's just the Deceiver smiling at you, and the words Citadel Finecast. And I was like, I couldn't help but make that a reaction image. But this is more lore on the Nightbringer. It's cool. And there's like the artwork of him, and he's just terrifying looking. His fingers melt into his scythe here, I have to note.
He's here to reap you. He's the Nightbringer.
He costs more points than a monolith.
He costs points for a reason. He does.
He costs more points than fucking Abaddon did in this edition.
He costs a lot. He costs like a fair bit more than the Deceiver as well, even though I honestly think He's honestly not as useful.
I mean, he destroyed tar
He's
pits.
he does, but like that's all he does.
Yeah, but he's also toughness 8. Where like toughness 8 was
I mean,
you're
the
immune to
Deceiver is
bullets.
tough.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I like the fact that he's weapon skill 6. Like even though he probably should be like weapon skill 10. It makes sense that he's weapon skill 6
No.
because it's like, yeah, he's good. He's been doing this forever, but he also like didn't have any real reason to learn to be better with his weapon than he
No,
really
he
needed
just
to
he
be.
smacks you with it and you're dead.
Yeah,
Why
like,
the fuck would he give a
how
shit
many
about finesse?
opponents do you think a Nightbringer has fought that have been more weapon skilled than him that would actually survive long enough that he would be like,
Yeah.
yeah, I need to learn how to handle my scythe better? None of them. Not even
None.
Phoenix Lords.
The one Phoenix Lord that went like 3 rounds with the Nightbringer brought him up to like weapon skill 6 from weapon skill 5 like millennia ago, and he's
Yeah.
just been like, whatever, that's good enough.
The only ironically enough, the only characters in third edition, like there's only like 3 off the top of my head models in third edition that could go toe to toe with a Nightbringer and like reliably hold off or actually win. One of them was the 3.5 edition like Demon Prince with a Dread Axe because then he could ignore invulnerable saves, and Demon Princes were not to be fucked with.
The Dread Axe was
Greater Demons, because Greater Demons were also big pimpin'. Though like a Lord of Change would probably lose horrifically to a Nightbringer. And
a Lord of Change, no. But
a Great Unclean one would probably sit there and just tank it, but not really do much.
Yeah, they would just kind of smack each other around.
And then lastly was a Broodlord, because Tyranid Broodlords in 3rd and 4th edition were fucking scary. Oh my god, Broodlords were terrifying. Because they were like initiative 8 with 6 attacks at rending, at like weapon skill 8.
Yeah.
He carries a scythe, but it's just purely for show. He is a character, but everybody can shoot him because holy Christ, it's the Nightbringer. He can shoot lightning out of his scythe. That's just a las cannon, but assault 1 in lower range. Just you're getting zapped. And then he had Gaze of Death. That's like instead of attacking in close combat with his 5 fucking attacks, it's strength 10. He can just blast everything in combat.
He has an ordnance template over him. It just bleh.
Yeah. Although this model was big enough that wasn't really all that big, but it's still like it was.
Really?
Yeah, but like if you had stuff crowded into base to base, then I mean it depended because Nightbringer model like kind of leaned over his base, so it would be depending on if you argued that the hole was over the base or the head of the model.
Yeah.
And then like, but the thing is that if you had him in a tar pit with like say conscripts, like the classic tar pit guard conscripts crowded in around him, then it would be like just this clusterfuck.
Those conscripts are not going to keep morale before they get that close.
Yeah, most of them. Yeah, it would be hard to get You need a commissar dedicated to shooting them just to get them to even charge it into close combat and then stay there.
Because like they have manifestation.
Yeah. And like you could argue that the conscripts could do it with a commissar because that's what they're supposed to do is just drown you in bodies. But I like the fact that Nightbringer's Gaze of Death was just there, so it's like, yeah, we don't want this model to be tar pitted to death like everything else in the fucking metagame.
Yeah.
Because it's like even if you can't kill it with the tar pit, if you can tie it down in that combat for the whole game, then you've made it functionally useless because it's not ever going to kill enough conscripts to make back its points cost.
No.
If you tar pit it. But you can't really tar pit it if you're just like, Ordnance template, you're all dying. What are you, toughness 3? You don't even get armor save. Goodbye.
Yeah.
And then Etheric Tempest, where he could just throw stuff out way with the wind. I dug that.
It was pretty good.
And then...
Next page.
Your favorite, the Deceiver.
My favorite.
Uh, 300 points for this motherfucker.
A bit more than a monolith, but not as much as the Nightbringer.
Yep. Also, this little lore bit where somebody talks directly to a deceiver, and he's just like, "You guys are idiots." But uh, the the deceiver had a pretty decent profile for close combat, honestly. I mean, he's strength 9 with 4 attacks that ignore all saves. But deceive was hilarious because you could just make everybody pinned. Grand Illusion was hilarious because Grand Illusion was ridiculous. It's still ridiculous. Like that rule is just ridiculous in general throughout all of 40k of just being like, all right, so I've seen where all your stuff is and is going. Now I'm going to redeploy all my stuff right now, and you can do nothing about it. Goodbye.
Dread is not that great.
Yeah, because it doesn't really affect anything that you really want to affect with it.
Yeah, it's instead of assault moving, it can just fuck with one other guy. Yeah. No.
But hey, you could do that.
Misdirect is okay.
Combat. Misdirect is hilarious though.
Yeah.
Because he is initiative 5, so you could let the opponent. You could let, like, if you had Space Marine, like Assault Terminators or something with Thunderhammers that are like,
yeah,
we're gonna fuck you up.
You can just fucking like kite them around forever.
Yeah, you're just like, no, you're fighting an illusion now. I'm gonna go. Yep, goodbye. I don't know if you could argue it if you could use Misdirect and Dread in the same turn. Because you could get into close combat with something and then leave the close combat and then say, I'm not in close combat, and then give Dread to the enemies that just are fighting the illusion.
Dread is instead of making an assault move.
Yeah, but Misdirect is not about making an assault move. And he didn't make an assault move, you just start in combat.
Well, you make a fall back move when you misdirect.
That's but is that an assault move?
I mean, no, I don't think you can use them the same turn. No.
Yeah.
It'd be really hilarious if you could, but you can't.
Just leave an illusion. And then
yeah, but the great grand illusion is the big dick energy of this.
Yeah. Though he really does not have that bad of a combat profile at all to fuck with stuff.
Yeah, it's he's not to be fucked with, but he's a character that is not really like something you are actually putting on the field to fight with in the same way that like the Nightbringer is. You are using this to add to your ability to already fuck with everyone else on the field. It's like a utility thing. And like for 300 points, that's a lot. But what he does and the fact that it's not limited to, like certain number of times per game or whatever makes it really good.
Yeah. And then just if he does actually get into close combat, he will probably kill a lot of shit. Yeah, but I mean, like, the Deceiver, also, because of his profile, like, you could reliably have him go hunting monstrous creatures. So, like, initiative 5, he could reliably go and kill, like, Carnifexes and shit.
What's interesting though is like he has initiative 5 and 4 attacks, and then the Nightbringer has initiative 4 and 5.
Yeah.
They kind of just like, I don't know.
It makes sense that the Deceiver
it feels like, yeah, it makes sense that like obviously he doesn't attack as much. He has like higher vision. I feel like that's almost not enough of a variance in a sense. Like I feel like initiative 6 and like 3 attacks, or alternatively Nightbringer initiative 3 but like 6 attacks.
Yeah,
would have made more sense.
The Nightbringer is much more viable as like a close combat monster with initiative 4 for this edition. Though, like,
That's true.
obviously it hasn't aged well because, like, later editions, like, this is the stat line of, like, Kaldor Drago or something, but, like, 100 points cheaper.
Well, like, I mean, yeah, like he's more viable, but immune to natural law, and like just attacking behind cover as if you have frag grenades.
Yeah.
You could like supplement that, and, like all the other stuff that the Satan get already. But either way, these motherfuckers are scary, and they do really fuckety shit that no one else could do at the time.
Yep.
And still do stuff that no one else can do to an extent, but not as much now.
Yeah, because they've made the Satan shards and turn them into Pokemon and everything now.
Yeah, turn them into Pokemon. You can't field like a full actual like Satan.
Yeah. And now, like the official artwork of him, I like what's creepy about this piece is that they gave him pupils.
Yeah, and like their little like slit pupils are like implied to be
like just like Pinhead Larry being like, "I'm manipulating your fate. Behold my golden six-pack."
This guy looks like the devil that Tim Curry played in that one movie.
I think that might have been what they might have been going for.
Maybe I don't remember the name of the movie.
Legend.
Yeah, I think it was Legend or something like that.
Yep.
But this looks like unnerving, especially like the fucking vagina forehead.
Yep.
This is unnerving in like a weird way, but it's good. This is good art.
Why does he have a pinhead? He has a giant brain he uses to deceive you. What?
Huge brain. Why does he need a brain? He's an energy being. Shut up.
Shut up. I have taken this form specifically to make you uncomfortable.
He succeeds. He 100% succeeds.
Yes. I have these random scraps of linen floating around me because...
Go back to the anime boy one. That was better. Let's see.
Look, he looks like a twink in this one compared... Like, look at this. Like, he's, like, super svelte and he's got a giant head. He's got, like, this domino eye almost. And then, like, the actual Deceiver, he's, like, jacked. Like, he's...
Yeah.
Golden six-pack. Look at all my obliques. Do you know how many lat exercises I've done just to look like this?
Arm day is the problem.
None, actually. I haven't worked out at all. I'm an energy being in a metal construct, you fucking idiot.
He skips arm day, so he's like a T-Rex mode going on. I don't like that. Which is, again, that's part of what he's doing. Is he
I
wants
may have T-Rex arms, but I can manipulate fate with them. What do you do with your arms?
He wants you to look at him and go like, "What the fuck, dude? Why are you skipping arm day?" And then he laughs at you. And then his arms extend like 30 meters and like just grab your creatine off the counter and just throw it on the floor.
The Plastic Man. Plastic Man wasn't a real superhero in DC. It was just the Deceiver having fun.
It was just the Deceiver fucking around.
I don't know if it was in this book or like or some after, or if it was just retcon for 5th edition. But I like the lore. I really like the lore that they had, where it was like all the other Satan went to sleep and all the Necrons went to sleep except for the Deceiver and his specific agents who stuck around. Unexplained ways.
It was way longer than 10,000 years, but
several 65 million years, but like
however,
I said 10,000 because it's like the Deceiver could have played a part in the Horus Heresy just as a joke.
Yeah, the Deceiver was Horus all along.
I was there as a meme.
It was me. I was the guardsman that died.
I was all Nephias. I was also Sanguinius. Yes. Sanguinius is alive. Actually, like, Horus pretended to kill the Deceiver. I was also Worldbreaker. The real Worldbreaker was lost in a swamp on Davin. I just pretended to be Horus's mace because I achieved orgasm at the thought of crushing Sanguinius's perfect face.
I was the beast. I wanted to ruin the orc lore. I succeeded.
That's great. There was no War of the Beast didn't happen. I just wrote it as a joke. We find out War of the Beast is like a play.
I was every Black Library writer for the past 10 years.
I am Graham McNeil. Oh! Oh, you did it now. I ruined the Thousand Suns lore.
It was me.
It was me. I did it.
It wasn't the Space Marine. It wasn't the Space Wolves that attacked Prospero. It was me.
The greatest trick I ever pulled was convincing you Matt Ward was real. By the way, I own Twitter. I just... Jackal God.
Gotta fucking edit Phil Kelly's face onto the Deceiver now.
It was me. I was his sideburns.
Make that the thumbnail of this video.
Every single Eldar Codex. That was me. You see, it's a really... Do you know how many levels of irony I'm actually on right now? Writes Harlequin's third codex.
No.
I don't know, dude, like 5 or 6 bad Chaos Codexes. You are like, little baby, watch this. Age of Sigmar comes out. It's good. It's really good.
You thought it was the Orange Rat. It was me all along.
I created the Skaven. I squatted the squats. I
turned back the clock.
I am the guy who goes to conventions and says reset clock. It was me. I was the one who offered you free real estate. Fucking...
You thought the Emperor put the Void Dragon on Mars? No.
It was me. Through subtle machinations, the Deceiver has destroyed most of these awesome devices and placed the remainder beyond the reach of Farseers for all time.
Get fucked.
Yep. The Talismans of Vault. Oh yeah, he was the one who ruined all of the Blackstone fortresses. The war that was provoked to achieve this ravaged entire sector of hundreds of... I love how the Gothic War was like, it's 12th Black Crusade, and it's like, actually it was the Deceiver the whole time. Like,
yep.
Such limitless suffering has been caused as does nothing to the Deceiver. It would have destroyed the Gothic sector 1,000 times over to achieve its goals. In recent times, the Deceiver has reluctantly concluded that it needs the other star gods, if they are to reassert their rule once more. The legacy of the old ones is gnawing at the very fabric of reality, and the old slave races need to be brought to heel. Hey guys, this Slanesh fellow that ripped a fucking vagina in space time is bullshit.
Yeah, he's stealing my thunder. We gotta stop that.
No, I just like the idea of the Deceiver like thinking to himself, and then he looks at like one of his like Necron Lord attendants, and he's like, Smithers, or he's just like Tacitus, get the Nightbringer.
He just has the big red telephone in his office.
It's even worse than like Titus, get the cross. It's just Tacitus, get the Nightbringer. He sees.
You gotta stop these Eldar.
He looks at
these Chaos Gods first.
He looks at a hive fleet come in, like a Tyranid hive fleet, and he just goes, Tacitus, get the outsider.
I think it's the outsider that's supposed to be fucking running away from the Tyranids.
No, the Tyranids. The Tyranid hive fleet fucking made. The Tyranid hive fleet avoided that star system.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot.
Like
they fucking know. They know what's there.
They fucking made a path around it, like a stone in a stream, and we're just like, nope.
Nope.
Alignment of alien structures on Angelus. This is gonna be bad. Collecting a Necron army.
Oh, this is just like the fucking like ancient aliens, like
yeah,
like the fucking golden ratio of the pyramid shit.
Yep. Oh, it is. It's great. Isn't it
is. Like, look at the map. It's like, oh yeah, there's pyramids on Mars in the face, and what this is like. Yeah, they knew what they were doing.
Yep.
Planet's ecosphere.
No, I love this. This is so tongue in cheek. Most people probably missed it. This whole thing is a joke about it's like an inside joke about a conspiracy theory that's actually true. And the thought for the day is a fine mind is a blessing of the Emperor. It should not be cluttered with trivialities. Because you know that this guy got executed for fucking being full of shit. Like, they're like, nah, you're probably fucking stupid, dude. 100 years later, oh my god, everybody on that planet's dead. Collecting a Necron army. Oh yeah. See what I mean? This is what I mean. This is a War Scythe model.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's got the Gauss piece in it. Can't be used as a Gauss Flare or Blaster.
No.
But this is always a great section of the book. Here's the other one. He's got a cloth on his Staff of Light for whatever reason.
Yeah, he's all fancy, you know? He's having a good time.
I actually have clothes because I remembered my brain.
I like that, like, the pariahs have, those weird purple crystals in their chest in this one.
I like that they're also, because it's like they're cyborgs and not true Necrons, they're fucking swole. Because it's
they're swole
muscle and everything under there.
They have to have room for their organs and everything, yeah.
And then, like, just...
I mean, they are strength 5.
All these models still to this day are fucking great looking. I'm still kind of... I remember the Wraiths were pewter models. I'm kind of upset... Like, I'm still kind of mad that they got rid of the classic Wraiths and replaced them with Wraiths that look nothing like them at all. And they just never explained the weird surgical tools the Wraiths have on their hands.
Yeah, it's shop though.
Yeah. And then, like...
Also the monolith. Go ahead.
The monolith is so good.
It has like the portal texture right there.
Yeah, like the portal was a... No, remember, it was a plastic piece. Like the
I know,
crystal,
it looks so good.
The Gauss things and the portal piece itself were all like casted pieces.
Yeah, it just looks really good is all I'm saying.
What was fucking pimping was this model is huge. Like, it was so big that you could get a drill and hollow out the bottom of it and then put a light in.
Put lights in it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And just be like, I have come to just scare the shit out of my opponent. Like, just...
No, yeah, what you do is you just have like a remote and then you just flash the light whenever a fucking unit comes out of it.
Yep. Or you turn on the crystal when you're doing the particle whip and your opponent's just like, oh god, oh come on, no.
You gotta make the sound effects with your mouth when you do it too, though.
Or you just wire a fucking like little speaker in there that plays the sound effect from Dark Crusade.
Yeah.
Just the shoot, boom!
Yeah.
Constructing your models. What I appreciate about this, other than just the fact that like they still have these guides as opposed to now where they're just like, fuck you, just buy our product, was that like they have a section here where they're talking about painting them and how like the painting guide and everything. And they're like, very important, don't fucking put this on first. Just put this on after you're done painting. Oh my god, please. Use PVA glue. And just Necrons were really easy to paint because it was just a ton of dry brushing mostly.
Yeah.
Expanding your models. Now this is a spooky army. I don't know why those immortals are so far back, but yeah. Necron tactics. This guy's dead. This guy is fucked. I don't know, not so much. He's got pariahs. He's unironically using pariahs. And then more painting details that were always great. The Satan, which their models to this day are still fantastic looking. I especially
fucking
like
the Nightbringer looking like fucking Thanos up there.
Yeah.
It's all like purple and whatever.
Fucking Nightbringer. I like that the Nightbringer comes in on a wave of scarabs. Like, even if there's no scarabs in your army, they're just there.
They're there for him.
And then just the fucking Deceivers model of just golden six packs. Like, you are now having brain cancer.
The horns and everything.
Yeah, just the weird head shape.
Like it's never fucking explained. It's so weird, but it's iconic at this point, so they can't get rid of it.
Yeah, and I love how like this was done before they had a really, really good metallic paint. So they're like, you're gonna have to do some bullshit to get this working. So this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And then, like, this is how you.
I really like the. I really like the bronze looking. Necron. Like
this guy,
like they're classically like they're white.
This guy that has the moss all over him is big pimpin'.
Yeah,
because they even glued like bits of moss to him and everything.
Yeah,
and then like they did have a plastic kit for the Destroyer Lord. I remember now. And the Destroyer Lord
Okay.
fucking looked great. He's got
Then
the
they have
resurrection
the
orb.
yeah the a little bit further ahead we have the really cool
Yeah, the
stuff.
hieroglyphs.
The hieroglyphs. Yeah.
I'm gonna use this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to use this for some editing. Art assets,
Mm.
delicious. I miss decal sheets. You know that
Thank
there's
you
actually a
for these
bunch of
art
box sets.
assets.
You know there's a bunch of box sets
Yeah.
that don't come with decal sheets anymore.
What?
Yeah,
How? Why
just
the fuck not? Stupid.
GW saving money or something, and just nobody
Saving money on
noticed.
fucking stickers? Really?
Not even stickers. They remember they're not even stickers. You don't even stick them. You had to cut them off with an X-Acto knife, dip them in water,
Shit, you're
and lay
right.
them on.
We can't even print like a piece of paper.
Yeah,
No. Fuck you.
it's great. And just the monolith, were just like it's an imposing model and forms the centerpiece of your army. You're goddamn right, it does. Also, the fact that the
Tasty.
monolith is, we should have mentioned this earlier, the monolith is not 0-1. In a 2,000 point game, you could take 3 of them and just watch your opponent cry.
Nice.
Like, it's just unironically horrifying.
I really like the monolith, like the way the portal on
Yep.
45. It's
Well,
really good.
The cool thing about the portal was, like, while it was also a transparent piece of green plastic like that, because of the texturing, you could easily, like, spray paint it with base coating your models and then paint it another color.
Yeah.
And just, like, add some highlights to make it vibrant. And it would be
Yeah.
like, it goes anywhere.
Yeah. And then we get to the Necron scenery.
I dug this because they're just like, just get some rocks and fucking color
Just
them
get
green.
some rocks and paint them. They'll look like alien crystals or some shit.
And just Tiberium. Let's make some Tiberium out of foam because, you know, Necrons inexplicably have green crystals on their planets. They just do.
What's really stupid though is like it looks like they took like sandbags and just painted them green in the bottom.
Yeah, like sandbags or like Warhammer Fantasy stone walls.
Yeah, they just painted them like green crystal shit. Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yep, and then
that's
the showcase is always a great thing in 3rd edition, 4th edition codexes because they did away with this where they're like, we can't show people conversions. They need to just buy everything as is.
No.
It's like this was the Juan Diaz designed this, and this was painted by Tammy Hay when she was still with the company.
I really like the Juan Diaz Necron Lord.
I like the Juan Diaz anything. He did the Demon Prince from 3rd edition. That's on that's like the from the panorama for the 30.5 codex where it's just the Demon Prince standing on a pile of, like, a literal mountain of Cadians. And like he built the model based on that, and that model was fucking awesome. I think he did a bunch of the Tyrannid models, which have always been great. The Tomb Spider diorama is fucking cool. This was Kirsten Mickelberg, who she's done a lot of dioramas for them.
The Warriors diorama with them like coming out of the moss and shit.
More moss shit. I dig it.
Yeah, it's real good.
This highlight work for the Nightbringer was fucking like this. This was like big pimping too.
Yeah.
Though it was hard to convert a lot of Necrons back in the day because like you just didn't have a lot of range to do conversions with. Like whereas like Chaos and Orcs, you could throw fucking anything on them and they would work. More transcript about all this shit. We're gonna get to a section I almost have to read verbatim, not verbatim. More lore about another Inquisitor being like, shit's fucked. This iconic piece, like the eclipse, the warriors walking out of the portal.
I feel like this actually doesn't get very much play nowadays. There's probably a lot fewer people that have seen this.
Yeah, but this also was the cover on the box. This was the box art for the Monolith box if you bought it.
Yeah, it was, but like what I mean is it was, as in like this is no longer something that is as used as it once was.
This is
which is a shame because this is really good.
This is a paraphrased Lovecraft quote here.
Yeah,
it's been copy pasted all over 40K, and then this artwork that also looks like a John Blanche piece, but isn't. These fucking. This is where the Land Raider getting penned on both sides.
And again, the face plates of the Necrons are very different in this compared to like other versions of it.
Yep.
even in the same book. And
Like
then
this looks,
you have the Dark Templar there,
or
or the
Black
Black Templar there, who's
Protoss,
getting
you say?
yeah, fuck off. He's about to get his shit fucked by wraiths, of course.
Thank God, seeing some Black Templars get their shit fucked. They're such.
I like the lightning effect on the tail there
Yep.
for the
I was just gonna say though, I hate the Black Templar fan base so much. I don't. I like Black
yeah.
Templars. Their fan base is trash.
You're not wrong, but I really like these wraiths. These are really good.
Yep.
These look really cool.
And then this is
And
a big
then you
deal.
get to the Adeptus Mechanicus reference stuff, theories about how these things work, which are just complete bullshit. But
Well, like,
I appreciate that they tried.
well, the best thing about this, like, all right, first off, fractal 6.6 fractal edged blade power weapon equivalent.
Yeah, like, what the fuck does that mean? What does it mean to have a fractal edge?
Hey man, they don't know it, but I'll just fight like this. It says note also capable of ranged attacks. That's how it gets you with that staff of light. It's not even, it doesn't even have a lightning effect. It's just the fractals on the edge.
The fractals of the edge extend into multiple dimensions. It's just slicing you with a blade that is literally millions of miles across.
Yes.
It just rotates it slightly into our universe to slice you with it from a distance.
And this is a big deal because this is where the Gauss name comes from, which, like, so Gauss was a guy he was a physicist who did a lot of stuff with electromagnets.
Well,
Gauss weapons.
No, he was a mathematician.
He was a mathematician. My bad. I'm
stupid. Yeah, the physics stuff was named after him, but for different reasons.
But Gauss, like, especially in sci-fi, when people say Gauss weapons, they're talking about coil guns, which are asynchronous linear induction motors as opposed to synchronous linear induction motors, which are rail guns. Rails versus coils, two different principles of launching a projectile magnetically. This section here is really important.
Actually, I should correct myself. Gauss did contribute to physics. So, like the reason we name stuff like that after him is he did contribute to the mathematical formulation of certain physical laws. But he's primarily known for being a mathematician.
Yeah. But I should say, like, this whole thing, this, like, cool data pad kind of, or data slate, I should say, whole thing is functionally the key point, a keystone in Necron fluff regarding how their weapons are, because Gauss weapon, like, so Gauss weapons in most science fiction, and if you made a Gauss gun in real life, like a coil gun, it's gonna be a magnetic coil chamber firing a bullet or a ring or something like that through magnetism. It's not gonna be firing green lightning. So how they justify this is this lore here, which, if I'm not gonna just read it out verbatim because this video is going on long enough, basically what they're saying is that Gauss weapons, the way they work, the reason why they name them Gauss weapons is because they use asynchronous. They're asynchronous linear induction motors using magnetic coils to pull your atoms apart at the subatomic level and suck them into a teleportation chamber in the gun.
It is the reverse of a railgun. It is not accelerating particles. It is pulling particles in.
Yeah.
It doesn't. There's no reason it would actually work that way, but it's Necrons. They have, like, super science. They can do what they want.
And they talk about how this is super science because the Magos in charge of this report is just like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, and a cool thing to note is that all of these, like, these are Jess Goodwin sketches for War Gear, obviously, that they lorified later, like they do with a lot of his gun sketches.
Yeah.
These don't have triggers. They just have grips. And he talks about it in the design here where they're saying, these things use so much energy that if there was triggers, if there were actual trigger mechanisms here, the trigger mechanisms themselves would cause, like, breaches in the containment of the energy fields of the weapon itself and cause the whole gun to melt down catastrophically or blow up or some other bullshit. So how the Necrons use them is totally unknown. And I thought that was fucking cool because, like, it just seems it's one of the rare examples of internal consistency. and also using in-universe like unreliable narrators to get away with shit. And like they justify, like a cool thing about this, like what we referenced way back earlier at the start of this video, was when we were talking about Fantasy Flight Games products where Necron stuff shows up. You have to make a tech use test, which is a skill in that game. That's an insane penalty to even attempt using a Necron weapon in that game, because it's assumed you're playing a human. And I think like that's best represented by the fact like these guns don't have triggers. Like they're basically like mind impulse weapons, because their power sources are crazy and like nothing they do makes sense.
Nope.
Also, funnily enough, the name in Dark Heresy 2.0 that the Inquisition, in that book at least, the context of that book at least, had for Gauss weapons was not Gauss weapons, but ablative projectors. Because that's functionally what they do. They ablate you on a molecular level to death.
Nice.
And then, this is from the piece we saw earlier, that splash piece. They just zoomed it in. They're like, this, and I just like how like this whole context of this Magos being like, look at this, you see this bullshit? This is a Land Raider. It's AV-14, and it punched a hole through one side and then out the other. What the fuck? I like that.
It's been a really long fucking time since like this came out, and like a lot of this stuff is like still like completely outdated. Like the Gauss thing, for instance, they changed the reason why because nerds on the internet complained. They go, oh, that's not how Gauss weapons work.
Yeah.
So they made, oh yeah, it was named after Magos Gauss who discovered it or some shit like that.
Yeah, and then of course they make the same blunder when they come up with Tesla weapons in the 5th edition codex.
Yeah, there's the old Tesla. You know, it's a name of like science guy does the thing, and then people complain. And, you know,
well, it's fine if you justify it as like they didn't actually know who Gauss or Tesla were.
No, they're just like, oh, it's some archaic scientist that
and like that was totally fine with me even in the 5th edition codex. The problem I had was in 6th edition when they introduced the Skitarii, and then they made one of the artifacts, the war gear artifacts their army had access to, was the skull of Nikolai Tesla, and it was like, yeah, the Adeptus Mechanicus know who Tesla actually was. It's just like, what the fuck? Like, just, it's retarded. Why do you have his skull? How would his skull be preserved over 40,000 years?
I don't know.
It's dumb. Really dumb.
We don't know where his skull is now, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And then more,
maybe he has a grave and they dug it up, like, I don't know.
Yep.
Centuries later after they wouldn't even be there anymore.
Probably.
Maybe they cloned him and then killed him just so they could have his skull.
And then his skull, for some reason, emits lightning bolts.
Yeah.
Fucking dumb. I hated the 6th edition.
Really stupid.
I hated the fucking Skitarii and Adept.
I was really mad about what the Adept.
Yeah, you remember when it first came out, and I was like, "This is bullshit." Like,
yeah.
But this lore is cool because it's a reference to Inquisitor Sezavac, and then another reference to the previous short stories by the Acadian 23rd, where they got fucking destroyed, and like a Death Watch kill team. This artwork where it's Necron warriors coming out of stasis is fucking big pimpin'. Threat assessment of the Necron fleet. Yeah, threat assessment high. Terror level high. And like this is like a photoshopped image of like one of the Necron tomb ships from Battlefleet Gothic, where in Battlefleet Gothic, Necrons were not to be fucked with at all.
No.
Ever.
If you're playing against Necrons in Battlefleet Gothic, you could do better just by shooting yourself in the foot. Literally.
Yeah.
It's no.
Yep. And then we got more short stories on more cool data pads, and this was our data slates, and this is like probably, I realize now, a Mechanicus style data slate as opposed to a mainline Imperium data slate border. And this is like a cool, I think this is a John Blanche piece that got put in here, or in his style at least, of a tech priest or a tech adept with his weird long fingers. I hold the secrets of the machine. Oh my god, my atoms. Campaign play rules that were really cool because they actually cared about campaign then. And like even rules for other people regarding the Necrons contextually. Terrain, a tomb raid special mission, which is cool because it's like, yeah, just don't do it. The whole tomb raid is basically like get in and then leave. It's not an actual like you can't actually win this. I've seen the Doom of the Universe. It's the full. This is a full passage about like one of the Uthway Farseers, and this artwork is super cool because these look like pariahs hurting like naked humans on like a cliffside towards like a Necron pyramid or something. So these might be like pariahs hurting like enslaved like other untouchables to be turned into pariahs, or like worse, like psychers to be vivisected. That like the psychers are freaking out because there's so many pariahs near them.
Yeah.
More lore at the end with these little notes and everything, and show like a map of the universe showing shit and being like, "Hey guys, look, look, this was cool. This is like a
unknown object."
Yeah, that's the Outsider's Dyson Sphere, and they're like, "Yeah, why did the Hive Fleet just avoid it?" What's going on? This is great. Pavonis, too, the reference to Pavonis.
Yeah.
The civil insurrection crushed by Ultramarines. World now under jurisdiction of Innistratum. Unidentified Xeno creature escaped from underground complex. Shouldn't be a problem.
That's fine. Don't worry about it.
And ba-da-ba, that's the end.
And then you get the real nice back cover.
Yep.
Citadel miniatures. They had a website then. That's good.
Yeah.
It was 2002, so like, yeah, they were fine.
Yep. This cool Necron. Like this is obviously like a terrain piece in the shape of like an Egyptian citadel, and they just painted it Necron colors.
Yeah.
I like that it's like, look at this Eldar army that's probably gonna get schmucked. That Deceiver's probably be like, haha, Kane, it's me again. That Deceiver's pointing at the avatar of Kane.
Yeah.
And there's all of these Eldar. They're like, all right, Avatar, we're ready to go. We're going to rock these guys. And the Avatar of Kane is looking at that Deceiver like, I don't think you guys understand. We should run.
This is going to be a bad time today.
Yeah, I am not going to have a lot of fun with this. Oh, no.
I also like the inside you will find blurb right there, because it actually, it's very...
Yeah,
like it's the same, but it's informative. It's like, yeah, we got color pages without a paint and model and shit. We got army lists. We got special characters. We got background lore. That's all you need.
And modern codexes don't really do this as much now.
No, no.
Like,
it's really all fluffy shit.
But I really like this 3.5 style of codex with like the codex of the Aquila, and they have like this text and thing. It's just it was just good. It was just good.
It was good.
They haven't really replaced it with a much better model, honestly. Like 4th and 5th edition codexes weren't really formatted too terribly, but they made some huge changes when it came to armories that are like very subtle but huge. And then 6th edition and onward just are fucking ugly books. No. Final verdict, what do you think?
It is pretty good, and I kind of see like key differences, obviously, between this and later editions, which we'll have to touch on later. I really liked it, and I liked the feel of the book, and just like going through it. You know, it feels very different, as you said, from modern codexes.
It also felt different from a lot of other books at the time because it's just
like it's introducing something totally new.
And it's not such an even though like the Necrons weren't as new as like the Tau when they came out, they do feel very unique.
They do, and
like they're also just especially because like the army is just such a weird mix of like rule contradictions, like / like just outright breaking the rules of the game that everybody else follows.
And I'm having special cases for every other rules for all the other, models released so far.
While also still being like a relatively balanced army, because it's like
yeah,
you could just make the army fucking disappear.
They do one or two things really good, but they're not completely broken.
But if they get going on you, oh lord, you screwed. Like just like how that was, because it's an army built on contradictions, really. Because it's like they're a really slow, shooty army, except for when they're really fast and just run you over. Like, because they're like some of their most effective troops are actually just fucking scarabs flying in to eat all your vehicles.
Yeah.
Well, this has been our Codex retrospective on Codex Necrons 3rd edition. Next time we'll probably do another 3rd edition Codex if we can still stand doing another 3-hour video.
Again, we still need to do Chaos.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of other. We need to do Orcs at some point, and Eldar.
Oh, Orcs.
Yep. Orcs, Eldar, Sisters of Battle. Well, this was not Sisters of Battle. This was Witch Hunters. This edition.
Witch Hunters, yeah. Sisters of Battle was 2nd edition.
Yeah, and then 5th edition in White Dwarf. I'm not sorry.
Anyways, that was the video. Thanks for sticking with us for 3.5 hours.
It's a little over 3 hours. I mean, it's a This is more like a podcast kind of video anyway. So I'm sure whoever's been listening to these has been putting them on in the background and playing some video games and relaxing with a beer or whatever and being like, wow, I'm hoping, this is what I'm hoping. I'm hoping their reaction they come back with was, wow, I didn't know this was what they were like back in the day compared to when I came into the game or something.
Yeah, they just leave it playing for 3 hours. Just forget it's running.
I mean, people do that with Joe Rogan all the time, and Joe Rogan.
This is the end of our ASMR video. Thank you for sticking with us. You have a good night.